The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. Sorry, I just had an alarm going off on my phone that I was trying to get to stop screeching at us before I opened up the mic. So there we go. And I don't even have the mic over here. It was an alarm telling me my blood sugar is too low. So how about that? How's that an auspicious beginning for the program tonight? Welcome to the show. I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. This is the Intrepid radio program right here on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And if you're not there already, you wouldn't hear that. So unless you're picking this up over on, okay, thank you. All the alarm was, I thought it was something telling me that my blood sugar was low. Let's just take it. I don't feel like it's low, but it's worth doing at the beginning of the show. The sensor is not working, it says. This would be the second one in 2 days. That's weird. Sensor ended. Okay, well, on we go. How was that? That was even more fun, wasn't it? Is this thing off yet? Not quite yet. Professor Bauer, you're about 2 hours too early for that. Cheers. So here we go. I don't like starting the show with something like that, but so what? There you go. My alarm went off, and it was going off right as it was hitting 9:03 p.m. And so I had to try to stop. It goes beep, 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 really screechingly loud. And it wouldn't let me do anything else on my phone. So I had to try to shut that off before I came in live. So there you go. I'm here. How y'all doing tonight? Happy Friday evening, but happy Friday. There's nothing like, I think it's this way everywhere in the country, time zone notwithstanding. I love summertime in the evenings because it's 9 o'clock and it's still bright outside. The sun has not set quite yet. And so it's kind of nice. And in about another month, well, what do we got? We got about 15, 16 days. And we've already hit the longest day of the year. And it starts getting smaller from that point forward. So our days are going to start getting shorter in about 2 weeks. So I'll let that sink in for a second. We're almost on the downward slide to winter. And it's only just summer. So, and wait, summer doesn't really start until the 21st. But we do know it's going to stay warm into August and September, which it normally does. And I wouldn't mind having a winter again like last year up here in the Great White North, where we had snow a little bit before November or on Halloween, and then it held off all through the winter until the last dying glacial expansive winter, which we didn't get this year. We had a green or brown dead grass winter, a green Christmas, a green January, February, March. Then we had a little bit of snow. That all tailed off in a few days, and then we went right into spring. I won't be dealing with those northern winters anymore, says JP down in, where are you again? Kansas City, Missouri. So Robert Bauer says, You are the harbinger of bad tidings and cold shit. Yes, I can be. So I just came from St. Louis. That's it. I knew it was one of those warmer cities that I have that has no appeal to me. There's nothing about St. Louis that appeals to me. I don't think I even want to go see the Arch. Come to think of it, it's like I've seen plenty of it in books and National Geographic and TV shows. And hey, that's the Arch, and I'm like, whoa, that's the Arch, or at least a picture of it. I'm impressed. Next. So there are some things I want to see though. Anyway, having said that, barbecue time, yes. No, I just came from the local carnival. It comes once a year to Somerset, Wisconsin, and for as small a town as we are, it was packed. But it was also the reason they bring it in is it's pea soup days here in Somerset, Wisconsin. And before you scoff too loudly about that or guffaw, apparently that's part of our heritage. The making of pea soup by the original pioneers here that kept them alive through the cold, stark winters or something like that. So, pea soup days. And so, Rainey, of course, being very involved with the Scouts, she is had things to do at pea soup days. And she drafted me, the husband, who is not as involved in the Scouts as she is, to go hawking the dunk tank they have every year. The Scouts serve up pea soup at their booth, and they also have a dunk tank. And so Rainey was actually part of the dunk tank. And I told her, Daddy wants you to wear that nice white T-shirt, you know. But she said no white T-shirts in the Scout dunk tank. But she did do the dunk tank, and she got dunked a few times. And they had me hawking on the street for 2 hours. It would be like, hey, I'd hawk and I'd say $2 per ball, $5 for 3 balls, and you can dunk my wife in the water. I said, for the Scouts, all proceeds go to the BSA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then we had some of the Scouts that had volunteered to do the dunk tank. They were all of about 3.5 feet tall, skinny little things in your early stages of scouting. And I can't imagine they were out of the 3rd grade. And they're sitting up there on the dunk tank ledge that, drops when you throw a softball at it. And they're shivering. I mean, it was warm outside. But once you got into the water and back up, the wind that was out there kept you very cool. Even Rainey said, it's very cold. See? And I said, I see. And so you had these shivering little kids that were tiny and they're quiet. They don't say a whole lot. Shivering, waiting for someone to dunk them again. And they're on half-hour shifts. And I said, come and dunk a poor, shivering Boy Scout into the water. Kind of thing. Cub Scouts at that age. And, we had a thing when I did the festival called Tomato Justice. It's where we had, it was all built out of wooden painted canvases and things like that, to look like an old festival attraction. And it was somebody in costume, and they had a hole cut out of a board, and he would sit with his legs out on the bottom, dangling, and he'd insult people to get them to throw tomatoes at him. And the tomatoes they got bushel baskets full of useless tomatoes they couldn't sell in the store. And when you paid your $5 or whatever it was, they handed you a couple of tomatoes. But first they squished them on they had a board standing there with a big nail head, and they would shove the tomato on the nail head and loosen it up, then hand these to you, and you would throw those tomatoes at the guy, and he would in turn he'd be insulting you, and his insults weren't, you couldn't go X-rated or go really nasty, but they were a lot of innuendo, a lot of R-rated types of insults. He'd look at you and he'd go, JP would walk up to buy a tomato, and he'd be ready to throw his tomato, and insults of like, I'll bet your fat grandma could hit me, but you can't. Look at those fat, and then you'd miss him the first time. He goes, look at the fat. The fat must still be wagging on your underarm while you're waiting to recover from that throw. And that's the mild stuff. This guy was so witty that would do this, and so there was only so much of that I could do. You got a quiet little kid who's shivering, weighing all of like 74 pounds, and you go, look at that poor shivering young child. I said, don't let him fool you. He's actually 6 foot tall, 270 pounds, and eats his mom and dad out of house and home, pretending to be a Boy Scout. I said, give that little cretin a taste of your arm medicine. Throw these balls and knock him into the water. Boom, 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 boom. So, that's what I did for 2 hours. Rainey was up on there getting dunked for about a half an hour. A school teacher, woman's school teacher, was before her for a half an hour. Then I had the 2 little kids for the last hour. I was hawking, and then somebody took over. So it was an interesting early evening. And then I looked at the clock and said, "Oh my, I got to go do radio." So here I am. Let me take a drink. Ooh. Then my alarm goes off right as we're entering the show to tell me, your blood meter's not working. I thought it was for a low. It sounded like the alarm for the low. So here we are. So it took me a few extra seconds because of that. Anyway, I want to move into something tonight that I think is worth talking about. I thought, should I name the person I was talking to, because I don't want to out him or anything, but there's no outing because it's somebody everybody knows and everybody here who knows. I was in a discussion with somebody, a little online back and forth, and you know him, and he wasn't being nasty, and neither was I. It was about politics, and I am obviously a Trump supporter, and he doesn't so much support Trump, and so we got to talking. And I had put up last week or earlier in the week an upside down flag picture on my Instagram, and he said, "Boy, that is not good form, brother." And I said, "Well, here's why I put that up." I said, "I put that up because I agree with the idea that and we talked about this last week on this show. I said, I agree with the idea that our system of jurisprudence has been compromised. And here's why." And we threw a few comments back and forth to each other. Then he messaged me and sent me an article, which I'm going to share with you. This article he sent, because he said, this is an article, he says, that I think if you approach it objectively and you're honest, you're going to have to agree with this article. And I won't tell you what my take was on the article, but I'll read it to you because I think it's something that you should listen to as well. And it is where I called this article up. I got to see where I've got it stashed. It's not there. It's not there because I looked it up. It's in one of my 300 tabs that are open. Okay, it's The Hill. The Hill, that website. It's a news site. And they are, if you don't know about them, you can look up The Hill and find out a little bit more about who they are. And They wrote an article, and it was an opinion article in their category of judiciary, and it said, beyond a reasonable doubt, why the Trump verdict deserves respect. Now, it's interesting. Right underneath that headline, they show a poll. And this poll asks the question, oh, no, it went off. I don't know why it went off. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, that was a news story that they were covering, and it was just covering that. It was a video. 49% of people polled, ABC News poll, 49% said Trump should end his campaign. 37% said they shouldn't. 14% said, I don't know. I think I don't know, by the way. I mentioned this on my tarot reading channel over on TikTok. I said, if you're going to say I don't know to it, I said, I want you to know something. I don't know is a bullshit answer because we all know. We know the answer to whatever we go, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Bullshit. You know what to do? You just don't want to do it. And so this was a poll. I don't know where this poll came from, but it was being aired on something here, and The Hill was showing it. So anyway, we'll move away from that. I'm going to open this news story, and here's what it says. Beyond a reasonable doubt, why the Trump verdict deserves respect. And this is by Sheldon H. Jacobson, opinion contributor. And he wrote this on the 4th of June, so 3 days ago. And it says this. Now, let me know what you think of this. Comment on this as we go, because I think it's important to get your feedback on what we're looking at here. And you can even look it up on The Hill's website. The Hill? I think they're just .com. But you can look up this story if you want to follow along. I got the Intrepid radio program playing in the background. Why? Oh, okay. That's why. All right. Something triggered it over on my YouTube page. Anyway, my page that I have open. Sorry about that, folks. So the article goes like this. Talks about beyond a reasonable doubt why the Trump verdict deserves respect. Former President Donald Trump has been convicted. Now, I also want you to hear how things are worded. Listen carefully throughout this article. And you tell me if the article is being, I'm not going to tell you if it is or isn't. I'll have an opinion at the end, but you determine for yourself if you think that the article is being written from an objective point of view. Let me know what you think. Former President Donald Trump has been convicted of 34 felony counts of falsified business records from a jury trial. There remain 57 additional felony counts that have yet to be adjudicated. These numbers sensationalize the legal woes faced by the former president. Yet the number of felony counts is less significant than the fact that there were any such counts at all. The only acceptable number should be 0 for a person who has served in the nation's highest office and as its commander-in-chief. Full stop there for a second. Keep in mind, and I agree with this statement to a certain degree. If you take out all mitigating circumstances, all additional information, you can say in the ideal, the only acceptable number should be 0 of felonious charges and counts and convictions for a person who has served as the president of the United States and its commander-in-chief. Okay? Now, let's move on. The only the independent of this verdict and those yet to be determined. Hey, Barbara. Unoffendable is her. Is hers, not Barbie D. It's the other Barbie D. She's in here. Good to see you. She'll load you with some information too. Independent of this verdict and those yet to be determined, any person in such a position of power and authority should display behavior and ethical standards that would never lead to actions that would risk being so accused. If such transgressions would occur, expressions of remorse and actions of restitution would be appropriate, which do not appear to be forthcoming. This is a sad time for our nation. Okay, so their position is, just to clarify that, the position of the writer on for the opinion column in the Hill is that any person who's been in this position as president should never display behavior and ethical standards that would ever lead to actions that would risk being accused of anything. And, okay, I can even go along with that. So keep in mind something he's saying here. He is saying, as he's writing this, I believe this, and I believe it's true, a truism. But at the same time, these are for actions long before he was president. So it's interesting. It's not something that took place after he was the president or while he was the president. So it's interesting. But let's go on. The jury deemed that the evidence was sufficient to rule him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, note the court rulings are not guilty or innocent. They are guilty or not guilty for the charges levied. And so if there's any reasonable doubts, the jury is obliged to rule not guilty. In this case, there apparently were no doubts, because it's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt would give you a negative or a not or a guilty verdict. So what this writer is contending is because the jury found him guilty on all counts, 34 of them, that pretty much seals the deal. All right. Now, it does. Frankly, it does. Now, the question comes about respecting the decision of the court, respecting the process. I don't question the verdict. I saw a friend of mine put up a meme right after this came out, and he said something. It showed Boromir from Lord of the Rings in his no one just walks into no one just walks into not Gondor. Why am I going blank on the region? Lord, you know what I mean? Mordor. No one just walks into Mordor. And he was saying something to the effect of in this meme that it doesn't even fit. It's just the same picture. It says something like, now watch, all of a sudden all the Trump supporters are going to deny that the verdict is real or is true. And I wrote my friend, I said, well, I don't deny that it's true. I don't deny it happened. I don't simply walk. There it is, Randall Flagg. Thank you. Mordor. And I don't deny any of it. I just disagree with it. There's a difference between disagreeing and denial. And what your disagreement is based on also can determine in everything in general. When you disagree with something, if you don't have an established good reason, you can go by gut feelings if you want. But if you're going to go into debate or anything about something, just saying, well, I don't believe that it's right, that's not going to get you very far in your argument. But he is saying the jury was obliged to rule not guilty, and there were no such doubts, obviously. What he's forgetting to mention, though, is remember in the jury instructions, the judge had said, you don't all have to agree on the same charge. It can be all different charges that you agree on. And if you all agree that one or more of the charges, then we'll take that as unanimous. It's not the way that's supposed to work, but that's the way this judge ruled. So the verdict will, of course, be appealed, as it should be, with new eyes giving it a second look. That is a right that should be executed or exercised. No person is above the law, including elected officials. Yet our legal system has risks of two types of errors: that innocent people are found guilty, or guilty people are found not guilty. And the former is considered unacceptable. Reducing such risk inevitably punishes the risk of the latter error higher. Now, I would also say where he started off that paragraph by saying no person is above the law, including elected officials, I would add to that, you must also remember that no person, even elected officials, should be deemed below the law. Not beneath the law. We're all beneath the law, but below the law. And that's always forgotten when people want to quote that. So, despite all such precautions, innocent people do get convicted, though the rate is quite low. Now, avoiding such error is the basis of the British jurist William Blackstone's ratio, which states that having 10 guilty people free is preferable to one innocent person incarcerated. I would agree with that. I would rather see 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person be incarcerated or executed, as it used to be. That's why the assumption in legal cases begins with not guilty. In the world of statistical inference, this means that the null hypothesis, as it's called, or conjecture to be tested and evaluated is not guilty. So rejecting this null hypothesis in favor of an alternative hypothesis, namely guilty, is often a high bar to clear, which is why beyond a reasonable doubt must be satisfied. So, what he had said earlier was the jurors all agreed beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump was guilty of all 34 counts. Now, of course, you also have to take into consideration there aren't really 34 crimes that they were adjudicating here. There was one quote unquote crime, and it just got entered in the books 34 times, different 34 payments to total the $130,000. So, for effect, Bragg, the prosecutor, the DA in New York, used all 34 entries in the books as separate crimes. If you didn't know that already, that's how it was charged and presented. Now, statistical inferences of this type are used anywhere conjectures must be evaluated and resolved. For example, clinical trials are widely used in medicine to assess whether a new treatment, intervention, or pharmaceutical product offers clinical benefits that exceed the existing standard of care. Marginal improvement may be identified during the assessment, but they may be insufficient to warrant approval. So a similar concept applies at airport security checkpoints. Some travelers are subjected to a secondary screening when they sound an alarm on a primary screening device. Though nearly all these alarms are resolved, and this ensures that the most risky items brought to checkpoints do not find their way into the sterile side of airports. Now, the same can be said with court rulings, this author goes on. The standard beyond a reasonable doubt must be met by all members of a jury, or the ruling may be deadlocked. Now, having a former commander-in-chief in such a situation is disappointing, this author says. Given all the evidence provided, the legal system functioned as it should have, and even with such a high bar to clear, a guilty verdict was given. So now, what you know of this trial, what we've heard about in the news, there was this high bar that needed to be cleared in order to give a guilty verdict. Everybody, almost every pundit out there was saying, okay, there's no way a jury can convict on this evidence. It just is not enough. It's not beyond a shadow of a doubt. Unless, of course, some would say, unless, of course, you want the conviction to happen. Then it's almost like nothing can prevent you from having no shadow of doubt. Now, that's opinion on top of this. But let's go on. What's even more disturbing is how some politicians have commented on the verdict. With politics, not principles, ubiquitous. This has been the case with Republican lawmakers who convolute the legal process with the legal ruling. Just because the outcome of a trial is undesirable does not mean that the process is flawed. In general, you would think that that's true. This reeks of those who claimed the 2020 election was stolen, with all evidence pointing to the contrary. So says, now, evidence of that, by the way, is still coming out. So there was something today that came out about that. We'll talk about that another time in Arizona. So, the one exception to the cacophony is Larry Hogan, a former Republican governor of Maryland who is now seeking the state's Senate seat. He commented that the court's rulings must be respected, a comment that any reasonable person with knowledge of our legal system would voice. Yet the environment in Washington appears to offer a paucity of reasonable people based on their words. Numerous Republicans, elected officials, and people in authority have attacked Hogan for his statement, including the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, who happens to also be Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, with a clear conflict of interest in the matter. And when opinions are colored by politics, not principles, one must begin to question the politics. So one flaw, a fatal flaw that I'm seeing with this article, is it only speaks about Republicans as not having the right opinion about this and speaking out against it. Not bringing up all the Democrats that have joined those Republicans in saying, you know what, this wasn't right. So elected officials are, and to me, that's a bias that shows through. Elected officials are, by their very label, elected to serve the people and execute the business of our nation. When such people begin to serve their party's interests over the well-being of the nation, the end result is ugly at best and destabilizing at worst. Now, he's using that to claim this is Republicans who deny that the verdict was fair are these people who are ugly at best and destabilizing at worst. He's not saying anything about the possibility that Democrats are doing it the other way around and calling them ugly and destabilizing. That, to me, shows that the article is incredibly biased to begin with. So based on last week's court ruling, a former president has been deemed a convicted felon by the courts. Every court case tests a hypothesis based on all the information available. Both the prosecution and the defense are given the opportunity to make their cases. A judge or jury evaluates all the evidence to reach their verdict. This is the foundation of our legal system. If our legal system cannot be trusted, our nation has problems far worse than a former president being so convicted. And the guy who wrote this article, Sheldon H. Jacobson, PhD, is a professor of computer science at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And he applies his expertise in data-driven, risk-based decision-making to evaluate and inform public policy. So it seems to me, as I read this article, that it's got a one-side slant to it. It's not taking both sides to task. It's saying that just because we have a legal system in place, that should be working. No questions. And I would contend that it doesn't work, that there's something broken down. What did James just say? The way the judge worked his jury instructions, he effectively cut the jury down to 4 people, since that's all it took. 4 out of 12 at a minimum. That's it. I don't see that mentioned in this article. Hey, Tamara Springer Gleason. She says, hey, everyone. Hugs. What a week. Welcome to the show. I haven't seen you here in a long time. Good to see you. And I've known Tamara since, when did we meet, Tamara? At the Stanley, was it? Years ago at a Ghost Hunters event, 2007, 2008-ish, somewhere in there. And she is a psychic medium. And so it's good to see you here. Thanks for being here. Let's see. What does Barbara say? Unoffendable. If you haven't seen Trump dance on Soul Train, Google it. Oh, nice. Trump always did that kind of stuff. He was always making fun of himself. Let's see. What does Robert Bauer say? Georgia and D.C. trials suspended indefinitely. The New York case headed for dismissal. The tide doth turn. Yes, the New York case is headed for dismissal. And the other two trials are suspended indefinitely. Me thinks also that the Democratic Party or the left thought they were going to get what they needed in this conviction on 34 felonies. Oh, George Takei even said it today in a post. Well, who do you want? Biden, and I can't remember what he said about them, positive in one or two words, or a man convicted of 34 criminal felonies. So it's like, well, dude, you're not trying to lead anybody anywhere, are you? So, there is all kinds of information in that article that my friend wanted me to look at. Now, my friend is somebody who has a very successful television show. It's been going for years. I'm not sure if it's still going now. It has been going for years, and he's done other side miniseries and things like that. And he lives up here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And he's the one that kind of had issue with some of the things I had said. And he sent me this article and said, you need to evaluate this or read this with an open mind. And he didn't say open mind. He says, without letting your opinions, really glaze you over. And I did that. I read it openly, but it's too hard. When you're into this and you think through these things, it's too hard to look at something that you say, wow, dude, that is so full of bias and holes that it's hard to not see it. So I wrote him a response. I said, okay, I watched that article or read that article that you sent me. And I want to read for you that article, my response to it. And you may have seen it if you're on my Facebook page. An incredibly long post, but I don't think it's that long to read. And here's what I said. I started by saying, this is long and it's going to require effort to read. But if you take a few minutes, this is the preamble I put in for my Facebook page because I had addressed it to him personally in private. I said, read this and consider the contents. You can only debate or argue with me once you've read the points. So I'm basically telling people, read what I just wrote here. Don't start arguing with me. Don't get it in 3 sentences and go, I know what you're about. Here's my opinion. I don't want to hear your opinion if you haven't read the points I've made. So read the points, I told everybody. I've been in some back and forth dialogue with a friend regarding the Trump trial verdict of a week ago. This is what I presented as my reasons for finding that there's been a breakdown in our system of jurisprudence. Now, folks, this is where I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to give you here. Because this is what I saw as the issues. And the issues I took with that article. And let's see, I want to break this out so I can read this and still see the chat room here. Hang on. I'm going to break this out of here. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay, I want to be able to read this while I'm looking at the chat room. So I can see if you guys got anything to say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So here we go, right here. Here's what I said back. I feel that the elements of this trial worked as they were supposed to work. Prosecution, defense, a judge, a jury, etc. All those parts existed and worked as they were supposed to on their surface. Where I have my issue with this trial can be found in the minutiae, the details that weren't always to be found below the surface, but were glaringly obvious anyway. Where I say there has been a breakdown in our system of jurisprudence is evident when you start peeling back the layers. And then I went through, I thought the simplest way to talk about this was to bullet point my points. So here we go. I just bullet pointed them. And some of them I spent a little more time on, and some just phrases. Number one, activist prosecutors. So do you think that the prosecutors in this trial were approaching this objectively, or even saying, I'm like Elliot Ness from the Untouchables. I'm going to make sure that justice is done here. Is that what Alvin Bragg was doing? Do you believe he was a prosecutor who was working for the cause of justice? Or was he an activist? He was an activist. He is an activist. He, in part, like Funny, ran on, or Letitia James ran on the for office saying, I will take Trump down. Now, is that objective? No. Is a prosecutor supposed to be more objective than that? I don't know. Prosecutors are supposed to prosecute people for crimes. But so I just left it at that. Activist prosecutors. Number two bullet point, activist judge, who, were he ethical from the start, would have recused himself as judge due to his and his family's Democrat donations and activism. This should have been an automatic given, especially in light of the fact that this was not a normal trial, but the first time a former president of the United States was in this position, which was manipulated all by itself. So, now, do you think because Donald Trump or anybody who would face trial should be given any kind of special treatment because they were a former president of the United States? Well, hell yeah, especially when they're running for office again. There are special considerations. Now, it's like this. I'm going to challenge you with something. You may disagree with me. See what you think of this. Uh, um, think about what I'm going to say here now when I say it. Do you know what I think Trump should do? I think he should mention the Hunter Biden trial, and he should tell everybody, he should tell the country, I think they should dismiss this case. And I think that that Hunter Biden, no matter what his situation, no matter what, if he was using drugs or lied about it at the time or whatever, you cannot violate his Second Amendment rights. He had a right to own a firearm. Now, there's a debate about whether he lied on his form to get it. Should that negate his rights? Well, if it was found out that he lied, maybe, I don't know. But I think what Trump should do is come out and say he deserves to be tried on the basis of his constitutional rights. And his constitutional right said he has a right to bear arms. He has a right to own arms. He has a right to bear them. It doesn't say in the Constitution, unless you lied on your form about taking drugs. If that's all this is about, that case should be thrown out. Even though it's the son, maybe you might say the very criminal son of the sitting president. That's not something that he should be tried for. Judge should throw it out if the judge was smart. If the judge was ruling on the basis of the Constitution, Hunter Biden should go free right now. Done. That's my opinion. All right. That's in talking about activist judges, activist prosecutors. I think we need to be fair both ways. That pendulum swings both ways, folks. So, number 3, Judge Merchan was handpicked for this case rather than randomly selected. And he has a record of highly biased decisions. Legal expert on both sides of the political aisle, Jonathan Turley, stated, "This is only the latest in a litany of Trump cases where Merchan has meted out tough rulings against Trump and his organization. In watching Merchan in the courtroom, I was shocked by his rulings as at times incomprehensible and conflicted," end quote. That was Jonathan Turley, who is a legal analyst, an expert, and actually, frankly, used by both sides. And probably won't be as much anymore because it comes out in favor of Trump and not the trial that took place or the decision made. And by the way, you don't have to agree with the decision just because it was made. That verdict can come down and you can say, wow, he's guilty of 34 things. Or you can go, I don't believe that that's accurate. I don't believe it's right. You can disagree with that and not be biased. You can look at this from an analytical legal point of view, and come up with the decision that this was not right. You can hate Trump and not want to see him get elected again and still come down and say, guess what? That verdict is wrong. And the way this trial was conducted has holes in it. Should never have been done this way. Moving on to my next bullet point, manipulated charges. The charge was not hush money, in case you didn't know that. So everybody knows. Oh, Trump got... I saw a little news clip where they had all kinds of people, 3 or 4 different people from different political ideologies debating this. And it was, who was it? The British guy. Piers Morgan had several people on. And I couldn't tell you the names of those people. I just saw a quick clip. And he was asking the woman that was saying that this verdict was accurate. He says, could you tell me what was the crime that was committed? And she stammered all over the place. And about 3 or 4 more times says, no. What was the crime? Can you name the crime? That's fine, he'd say, but can you name what the crime was? And she never could. This is their experts. And this is what a lot of people are left with. Can you name the crime that Donald Trump was just convicted of? What were the 34 felonious charges? What was the crime behind them? Was it paying hush money? Thank you for playing. Paying hush money in New York State is not illegal. So it was something else. What does that do to everybody when they go, wait a minute? Well, paying hush money is all I know. So the charges was not hush money because paying hush money is not illegal in New York. Bragg's office, the DA, was unclear with his charges, referencing federal election laws the DOJ had declined to charge Trump with. With no federal prosecution, Bragg decided to use an unprecedented criminal theory, not only to zap a dead misdemeanor into life after the expiration of the statute of limitations, but to allow him to try violations of not only federal election law, but also federal taxation violations. In other words, the Justice Department declined to prosecute federal violations. So Bragg, a state district attorney in New York, effectively took it upon himself on a state level to take it on in court. And he didn't even have jurisdiction to do that. Further, the charges that he was bringing against Trump had expired. The statute of limitations was like I don't know, something like 5 years or something from the original crime. They expired in 2019 or before, but in 2019 it went to the Department of Justice, who turned it down and said there's nothing to try here, nothing to see here, folks, and would not take on the case. And so expired statute of limitations is the next bullet point on the initial charge of illegal bookkeeping entries, which was a misdemeanor prior to its expiration. The statute of limitations had expired. Do you know what that means? It means if I don't know, let's pick a crime. If I violated a trespassing order and walked onto somebody's land to hunt where it's clearly marked no trespassers. If I'm not taken to trial for that or charged with a crime in a certain number of years, and I don't know what it is for trespassing, 3 years, when that expires, you can't charge me with a crime because the statute of limitations has expired. Now, it seems to me that there's a lot of things that I've run into in my life, and that I know other people have, where the statute of limitations has expired. And so you can't do anything about it. Well, you're screwed. You can't do anything about it. But in this case, Bragg manipulated the system to reopen expired charges or expired. He called them criminal. Further, did you know that there were over 150 different cases in New York State involving the very same thing as what he said Trump did? And not a single one of those ended up. I think they found some people guilty and they had their wrists slapped and that was it. Move on. And there was nothing. By wrist slap, it means I can't remember the figures off the top of my head that people were charged, but it was relatively nothing. So now they're talking about the possibility of jail time. Nobody has ever served jail time for this particular crime, quote unquote, that Trump supposedly just got 34 violations of. Now, the reason it's federal now is because Bragg has attached it to federal taxation and federal political crime, politically motivated election fraud. And it's not his jurisdiction to do that. The Department of Justice on the federal side already declined to do that and said, nope, we're not doing that. So the expired statute of limitations, it was a misdemeanor prior to its expiration. Meaning it was a misdemeanor. What's a misdemeanor? Tiny crime. All right. So, moving on. The federal charges is my next bullet point. Now, these are my bullet points, by the way, of stating why I found the jury trial's verdict of guilty on 34 counts to be erroneous, to be wrong. The federal charges, the same charges dropped by the federal prosecutors in 2019 for being void of substance. Boom, gone. And expired on top of that. Next bullet point was activist New York District Attorney Bragg, who reopened the statute of limitations so he could attach them to a new federal charge, the same one that was rejected by the federal prosecutors, which was not under his purview or jurisdiction. It's another bullet point. He reopened the statute of limitations on something and acted as if he had jurisdiction to do a federal case. Next bullet point is Judge Merchan's gag order on Trump. Highly irregular. Gag orders are for the purpose of protecting defendants. And they're never imposed on the person who has the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. Whereas Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and everyone else in that trial were free to speak openly. Only the defendant was prohibited from speaking outside the courtroom during a trial. Speaking outside a courtroom during a trial is considered part of a defendant's unofficial defense in the court of public opinion. And Trump was denied his First Amendment right to speak about the case with this gag order. And he was the only one in the courtroom that was gagged. Next bullet point, one single charge of falsifying records morphed into 34 charges for each of the payments made to Cohen, totaling that $130,000. Prosecutorial overkill, utilized by the prosecutors to make the charges look more egregious to a grand jury, was what we saw incorporated here. And they held them through the entire trial and convicted him on all 34 counts. So people seem to think out there, by the way, when you talk to people that don't know a damn thing about this trial, and they go, well, Trump was convicted for 34 crimes, felonious crimes. I said, can you name what the crimes are? Blink, blink. Blink, blink. Blink, blink. The crimes were all one crime. Quote unquote. It was all one crime. It was like saying, I paid my lawyer $130,000 in 34 different installments. That's what it was. All right. Now, moving on. It's prosecutorial overkill. Next bullet point, Judge Merchan was conflicted in several of his orders. For example, he allowed the prosecutors to introduce the plea agreement of Michael Cohen to federal election violation, as well as non-prosecution agreement of David Pecker on such violations. The judge was very conflicted in the things he allowed and disallowed, and it was kind of ramshackle. Judge Merchan's jury instructions. The court largely used standard instructions in a case that was anything but standard. However, the instruction also allowed for doubt as to what the jury would ultimately find, allowing for non-unanimous findings. But stretching, this is what James mentioned in the chat room, but stretching unanimity across several elements. Non-unanimity equating to unanimity, allowing a hung jury to be turned into a guilty verdict without unanimous consent, or without beyond a reasonable doubt across the board. Judge allowed that. He actually instructed them on that. Next point was a jury of his peers. This jury was anything but a jury of Trump's peers, in that it was comprised from a pool of potential jurors in a city that is predominantly anti-Trump on the political scale. This entire venue should have been changed from the very beginning, but a neutral location would have, in my opinion, been absolutely unable to convict of guilt on these charges if they were a neutral location, a neutral jury. Objective. Next point is Judge Merchan hampering witnesses. Trump's defense team wanted to call election law expert Bradley L. Smith, to testify about the federal campaign finance law. But the judge ruled that allowing Smith to testify expansively on that topic would supplant the judge's role to determine what the law is. What? Judges go, well, I'm the one who makes the law here. I don't want to bring in a legal expert because he will take over, he will usurp my authority to determine what the law is in my courtroom. There is no question this would result in a battle. This is still Judge Mershon. There is no question that this would result in a battle of the experts, which will only serve to confuse and not assist the jury, end quote. Why don't you let the jury decide that? So judge is saying, I'm not going to allow his testimony if it's too expansive. There's areas that I'm not going to allow him to talk about because it'll just confuse the jury. Don't we just present the information to the jury and trust that they're able to figure it out? The judge didn't rule against Smith being called, but said he wanted to see in writing the likely testimony before he would allow him to be called, and to ensure that the witness wouldn't contradict his findings or his rulings. Do you think that that is fair? A fair judicial? That's not the way I want to say that. A fair adjudication of this? No. Stormy Daniels, my next point, was allowed to testify despite having absolutely nothing to do with the charges. Her testimony was irrelevant because it had nothing to do with furthering or disproving the charges. She was brought in for one reason and one reason alone. She was allowed to be there for judicial theater to be played out in front of the jurors because it would affect their decision making. That the judge should have, when the defense said, object to her testifying at all, because it's not germane to the case at hand. The case wasn't about whether he had an affair with Stormy Daniels. The case was about whether or not he paid his attorney to cover it up, which isn't illegal in the first place. If they wrangled it into something completely different with campaign law. So what does she have to do with it? Nothing. She was there to embarrass the defendant, who was gagged from speaking about it, and to sway the jury. That's why the prosecutor wanted her. There were many other jaw-dropping things from the bench that were rulings from the bench that were obvious to anyone present in reporting that the case was being tilted. And I saved this one for the last because it is frankly much more subjective than the other points above. And that is, so I do have a bias against this verdict. It's my opinion. I have a bias against it. I also believe Bragg's victory lap. Oh, that's fireworks. I was wondering what I was hearing. Bam, 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 bam. It's fireworks from the carnival going on, the pea soup days. So, I believe that Bragg's victory lap on this. Hey, I won. Trump's a criminal. I think it's going to come to a very short end in appeal because the appeal doesn't come under the same judge. Different judge, different jury, maybe even a different location. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. When I fly the flag upside down, symbolically, as it was just a photo on my social media page, now I'm speaking to my friend when I'm writing this, it's to represent the breakdown in our system of jurisprudence. I believe Donald Trump was legally bum rushed. And there was no way to stop it once it became evident. There might be, I remember saying, can anybody stop this judge? They can't because it's already going on. Something really egregious would have had to have happened in that courtroom for somebody to step in and say, you're done, you're out. It had to play out. There may be people who believe Donald Trump should not be allowed to run for office again, and they are welcome to that opinion. But let the ultimate jury decide on November 5th. attempting to prevent him from running or possibly even winning the election by the use of lawfare should be reprehensible to anyone who believes in our system of jurisprudence. Hell, I believe Trump should announce that he stands for the dismissal of Hunter Biden's trial on the basis of Hunter's Second Amendment rights. I openly support this idea, but it'll never happen. Why? Politics and the Second Amendment. To say that Trump was not found guilty due to politics, to say that Trump was found guilty due to politics is, in my opinion, based on the facts that I've mentioned above, and erroneous. So, and I left that with my friend. I said, look, we can take a deeper delve into this and talk about it. Writing this all out is tantamount to writing the outline for a new book. And I just put a smiley face. So, yeah. That is my take on this. What do you say, guys? What's your take on this? What's your take on the? We talked about it last week, of course, because it was last week that we found out about it. But Barb said, Shakespeare said it best. First, let's kill all the lawyers. Thank you, Barb. I would agree with that. We now have 3 Barbaras in the room, by the way. So, so there you go. Shakespeare said it best. Maya Hansen, hi, how you doing? Good to see you, Maya. Kalina, has there ever been a case where the defendant was guilty on all counts with the number of charges so high? I couldn't tell you because I haven't looked into that kind of data. It's an interesting question. And do you think that Trump was guilty of all these things? I said, in my opinion, I think that a lot of this needs examination. This was not, I think, a fair trial. I'm going backwards through your comments. I'm going to put this up again, James. James said the way the judge worked his jury instructions, he effectively cut the jury down to 4 people, since that's all it took was 4 out of 12 at a minimum because of what the judge said. You don't have to be unanimous. So let's see. Looking some of that. Not lots and lots of comments tonight because I'm going back. I'm seeing some I'd seen already. The shill, says Rapid Dog. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. Maybe it was about Trump dancing. I'm not sure. Let's see. So there we go. That is the presentation I wanted to make for you tonight on this case because it was a recent conversation. And if you want to know who I was talking to, I don't think it's wrong of me to mention this. I mentioned that he's somebody that you would all recognize. Successful TV shows. He lives here locally in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And I believe a good man and a good thinker. It's my friend Scott Walter, who has the show America Unearthed. And he did something on the treasure of the Knights Templar and some other things like that. And so Scott, I know he had mentioned to a friend of mine a while back, and the friend passed it on to me. So I can't believe Scotty believes his stuff. I can't believe he would support Trump. So he's got a particular point of view. And so there you go. What do you guys think of what this was all about? James, I'm glad you got the surprise Friday night off too to be here. Thanks for being here. That's very cool. Now we're going to just take a 1 or 2 minute break. And if you got to pee, now's the time to do it. If you got to grab something to drink, go grab something to drink. And let's go on with this. I'm going to go put some drops in my very dry eyes. Standing out at that carnival hawking for people to throw balls at Boy Scouts in a dunk tank. I left my eyes full of stuff, so I'm going to go put in some eye drops while we play some of this stuff. I may come back looking like I'm crying. So let's play some things, and we'll come right back with the Captain's Cabin. So I want to thank you all for being here. Let's get out of here with the show, and we'll be right back. Live long and prosper. Stay tuned.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Captain's Cabin. It's we've been talking like a pirate a lot in the last day or so. Sam came over today, and we were going through a couple of boxes of things that I got from Dave's trailer, leather bits and pieces and stuff like that. And we found some stuff that was very useful for some of the costuming that Sam is doing. And so that was good. And so it's fun to see some of that stuff. I wore Dave's costume a little earlier this week. If you watched Robertson on Tuesday, we talked about sex in Tudor England was our topic. And what was it like during that time period? And especially with the royals. And so I thought I'd get in the mode, and I put on my rough collared shirt, 1600s, and my doublet that used to be Dave's, the black one with the puff and slash and slash and puff type of tailoring to it. It's where they would cut slashes in the fabric, and they had fabric underneath that they would pull out and sew it into place. You had this incredible looking tailoring. So, Roger Rabbit, I do too. Damn, I miss Uncle Dave. I know he tunes into the captain's cabin from his deluxe suite in heaven. Yes. I saw, you know how on YouTube, those of you who use your YouTube, you'll sometimes get videos for you or something at the top, things that they say, we thought you'd like this. And one came up at the captain's cabin the other day and I clicked on it, and it was to see which one it was again. And it had it tuned right into Dave and me. I don't know if Ruben Fasthorse was in on that one or not, but it was very refreshing. And Dave was laughing about something, and we were all talking. And so it was nice to see. Yeah, I miss Dave. So let's see. JP says, how does that even work? Not sure what you're talking about. Last time I saw Scott, says Roger Rabbit, he was on with Ron and Rocky. Yeah, I remember that. And he and Rocky hit it off pretty well from the last Paradigm Symposium we did, which was 8 years ago. Was it 9? 8 years ago. They found out they both played football for the same team or something like that. So it was pretty cool. And I think Scott is just a little older than Rocky. I think Scott's about my age, if I'm not mistaken. So what did Elderberry said? Yeah, he also debunks the planted archaeological finds here in America. Yeah, he does. He does. How does that even work? Is what JP asked. Are you talking about how do they plant archaeological evidence? You're going to have to call in and clarify what you're thinking there, brother. We'll talk about it. The best one was the English burial of Rough Rick. He was buried in the 1200s in Arizona. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. All of that is. And it's interesting when Scott takes, and I told him, when he disagreed with something I said politically, I said, I appreciate that. You're telling me that. I said, I also want you to know that I deeply respect what you do, and I respect your work. Yeah, the debunking of planted finds. Planted finds is, as you can well, deduce by the name of it, are things that people say they've found that are archaeological finds, but they're really planted pieces, and some of them not as old as people like to claim. And Scott's gone about debunking some of those. And he gets a lot of specialists and experts involved and things like that. Elderberry says, I've seen that on Dave. I recognize that outfit immediately. Yeah, if you go to Dave's old Facebook page, David W. Potter, you're going to see him in that costume in some cases. It was a little roomy for me. Dave was just a little bigger than I was through the midsection. So other than that, it was all right. And I think it was probably even roomy in the shoulders, but I liked it that way. I'll probably wear that out to a festival this year just to go as a visitor. So John Brewer says, hi, it's the banana. Hey, John Brewer. Nice to see you. Glad you're stopping by. So are you the one who tried to call in and showed off your junk? Can't remember. So Here's the professor. Let's bring the professor in since he's here. How you doing, professor?
I am. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you as well. Good
Did you
evening.
get a
my
haircut or did you get your hair pulled back?
Well, I've always said there's 3 areas that are just awesome on the body, and this is when I learned shiatsu. One's the feet, the other's your ass, your glutes, and the other is your head. And when you learn the wonder and magic of a good hair pull,
Oh, there
I'm
you
just
go.
saying.
I think I was talking about something else, but that'll do.
Well, I think
Okay, John Brewer. I know who you are now. Sorry about that. We had somebody did something with bananas and popped on and had his schlong hanging out. We go, oh, we'll just turn him off.
Well, you never know who's lurking out there these days, and that's why
right.
you got to really check and trust those that you have come on your show and just totally derail it and potentially demonetize it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, that's what they do. It's fun for them. And if a guy comes on and he's on for a split second, wagging his junk in the camera, I'm like, and I turn him off. I go, well, hey, you know what? You fuck you too. I don't really care. But
you had that happen to
let's
you.
move on. I have.
Wow.
I haven't been demonetized though.
But when did this happen? Some guy.
Month ago.
Really?
Elderberry remembers it. He says, yeah, that was bad. I can't remember when that was.
So some guy came on the show and started waving his sword in the
I brought him in
cabin?
just like I just brought you in. He came up in a little window and he's leaning back in his chair, just wagging his junk around, humping the air. And I'm like, oh, see ya.
Wow.
I said, really? I said, if you're that much in need, there are people you can call.
There are places, processes, drugs, and all that for that.
So yeah, that's happened to me twice.
Wow.
So, I had one guy that after the first time that happened, it's got to be a couple of years ago now. We were talking Sasquatchy stuff, and he wanted to come on and talk about it because he had some stories to tell. And I said, well, talk to the people in the chat room. Somebody will vet you, one of my moderators. And it didn't really seem to, and he kind of begged me. He was like, dude, he says, we come in and we wreak havoc with some people's sites just for the hell of it. He says, but I'm really into this and I would love it if you would talk to me. And I said, and so I ran the risk. I brought him in. He was a very good guest. He was fun to have, not a guest as an interviewee, but he added a lot to it. Hey, Ron Frisbee, you have been spot on with the Trump kangaroo court trial, and I agree with your assessment on Hunter's Second Amendment right. Damn straight, Ron Frisbee. Thanks for being here, brother. Some of Dune, if your topics a crash. What was that now? Dune, if your topics attract the crazy.
Probably meant dude.
Some of my topics. He said some of, not Dune. So yeah. My phone does that to me all the time.
Well, see, that's the thing, Scotty, is that if people think that any of this content that those of us that are, regularly poking around and haunting in the same spaces are doing, if they think that this is because of some need to control or, gain influence or anything like that, it's like, no. You missed the whole point. When you get when you get north of 60, you've got shit that you've done. You got a track record. You got experience.
Right.
You got things that are relevant to the days du jour, whatever that might be. Right? Yes. Exactly. So now we're at the point where, how lucky are we that right when we are ready to take this geezer wisdom, this ancient asshole knowledge, and spread it freely across whatever platform we desire, and doing it with abandon and being, prosecuting with extreme prejudice. Meaning we are not going to stand for anything that we can't agree is not bullshit. If it's not bullshit, we let it in. If it's bullshit, If it's bullshit, we're pulling out the Gatlins. We got laser scopes.
Calm down there, Harrison Ford.
You know what I'm talking about?
This isn't Captain Willard.
Don't
I'm
get
not going up
cocky,
the Dolong River. All right.
Well, you can man the boat.
Execute with extreme prejudice.
By the way, I just want to say this little bottle of water here. This was something where it was sitting. Rainey has a bunch of these in the garage. They were all shrunk wrapped from the store and split open. And I thought, I wonder if I should bring one of those in and drink that tonight. And I picked it up by the cap, and it slipped out of my finger, hit the floor, bang. Top popped off. It tipped over, blub, 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 all over the garage floor. And I'm like, I grabbed it quick, and there was about this much left.
Oh,
and
Lord.
I guess I'm drinking that.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Cheers, by the way, in my Captain Kirk tumbler.
Salute, brush, and otherwise.
So what I was getting at, Scotty,
yes,
with my comment was regarding the judge stating that, hey, I will accept a verdict if only 3 of you guys agree or only 4 of you guys agree or whatever. How does that even work? And how I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. But the way I've always heard it,
a unanimous decision to convict.
Right. Otherwise, you have a hung jury, and you got to sit there and you got to go back and deliberate again. To avoid
a hung jury, he said 4 of you can agree on this version of the crime. 4 of you can agree on this one. 4 of you can agree on this one. And he broke it down a couple. I will accept that as unanimous.
Here's what I would love to see, just for my own edification. I would love to see somebody out there, because I don't even know what book to start with, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see somebody put out there, hey, according to, state law and various jury manuals and all that, court manuals, etc. Here's where you can do this. Because it's been my understanding that everybody, you have 12 jurors, and you go before them, and they decide, and until they have a unanimous decision,
that's right.
They keep deliberating until the jury is no longer hung.
That's right.
Well,
so can you have an agreement from 12 when it's divided up that you don't all 12 have to agree on one thing? You can agree on different aspects of the thing, and the judge says, I will consider that to be unanimous.
This is one of the dozen or more, maybe 2 dozen violations of the jurisprudence.
Yes.
And the state laws and federal laws.
Well, and that's the thing. I want to see the books where it states that.
And to your point, Jason, about, the jury is supposed to be, of your peers, and you're supposed to, trust in their fair judgment and adjudication of the cases.
Well, there's no way he's getting a fair trial there anyway.
No, but that's the point. That's one of the fundamental options in the jurisprudence system, is for a change of venue, to have for a more fair and neutral, balanced jury pool. The jury pool is the most important thing, but they've got all these ways in which to administer it that's supposed to keep it on the fair side. Remember, the whole thing is innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
The only place they do have to agree on jury selection.
The only place that, in my opinion, that's been reversed or needs to be reversed when it's used is anything to do with the government. The government is guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
And that applies there because everything is so obfuscated, subjugated, suppressed, soiled, tossed out, dismissed, denied, and put into the tinfoil hat bucket of buckets. And you go, come on. I mean, at some point, there's a level of logic, reason, common sense, obviousness, and a whole shitload of a whole bunch of what the fuck going on.
Yeah.
And people who haven't even been paying attention to it are having that experience.
Right.
And that is what
did Sarah say?
For the last couple of years.
Cherry picking. I was going to ask her what you meant. What's cherry picking?
With the jurors, when they go in and they sit there and they select the jurors, or are you talking about the
the whole jury selection
cherry picking the counts?
The requirements are that it's a fair and balanced jury of your peers. Now, let me ask you just an observation. Do you think that any of those people on that jury were Trump's peers?
No, I don't believe this was a jury of his.
And I'm not talking about.
Okay, so now we have to look at the definition of peer.
I'm not talking about their politics. I'm talking about their life, their status.
No, I understand that.
Shouldn't he be tried by his fellow billionaires?
No.
Shouldn't that be the
jury? A jury of your peers means a jury of fellow citizens.
Do you think they're fellow citizens of his?
Yes. If they're Americans, they are citizens. Okay, therefore, they are the peers.
I can go along with that. I'm just saying, the whole concept of the way this thing is worded with these protections, so that there's more, there's a deference to the criminal is innocent until proven to be a criminal.
See, and I had stated that I thought he was not getting a jury of his peers, not for political status, not for financial status, but because the trial was being held in a location that was already quite biased against him.
It was 90% blue that didn't like Trump. That's not
and of course, if he went to a red state, the opposite would be said. So it needed to be a much more neutral location than New York City.
Agreed.
They could have still done it in the state of New York, but you take it outside of the city, where the city is very biased against in their politics. So did he have a jury of his peers? No, I don't think so. A jury of his peers would have been average citizens outside of a war zone, so to speak, a political war zone.
Yeah. I mean, they could have tried it in Watertown, New York. That would have been interesting. That would have been. Good God. That's the thing is like with New York, when you go outside of New York City, except for like Buffalo and Albany and things like that, it's a very red state. It in terms of how people think. It's
video file.
It's so agrarian.
Well, see, I gotta say, Sarah said he lived in New York.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? He was also New York practically kicked him out of New York about 4 years ago. And he moved away from New York to Florida.
New York has been just like California. They're both on the coast, and they're both individually and collectively headed to just tear themselves apart and leave a whole bunch of mess for the rest of us to come in and clean up and fix it. Now, if you don't mind, Scotty and Jason, I've got a short clip of someone's perspective that I thought I would share.
You can't play it if it's off of YouTube.
No, it's on my local computer.
Okay. Well,
So
it's not downloaded from YouTube, is it?
It is, and I've already put it out to 7 platforms and have had no problems.
Okay, otherwise
no warnings for copyrights, no marks,
gets
no nothing.
tagged.
Yeah, none of that.
And by the way, we've got somebody out there called Professor. That is not you. Another person calling in, but their picture's frozen. I don't know if it's a real professor. Second professor, Professor 2.
Professor 2 should be the share that I've got loaded the file.
Oh, is that the share?
Yes.
Oh, you already loaded it up.
Yes.
You didn't even ask me and you loaded it up.
Well, I knew you wouldn't show up unless you clicked on it.
Here it goes.
Honest people. The media is.
Okay, so
you should pause it if you're going to talk. Now there's no volume.
Getting nothing.
Hold on.
And universally, the media is, by design, only the dishonest people.
You can hear it right.
At least the so-called corporate media.
Don't talk.
It's all dishonest people. And they're doing it intentionally and universally and every single day. and they know exactly what they're doing. Why would anybody apologize for what they choose to do every day they wake up? Don't believe it? Allow me to give you the score for how the Democrats are doing lately. You ready for this? This is called the climax. This week, we learned that Fauci lied about the lab leak. He lied about the gain of function. He lied about science. He lied about the distancing. He lied about the masks. He lied about the shots. He lied about the closures. Everything we know about the Ukraine war is completely made up. Seems to be an energy play, has nothing to do with NATO or protecting the country or Putin is bad. We know that Biden is certainly not fucking cogent in private. Come on. Even the Democrats know that's a lie. Why don't they apologize for saying that Biden is perfectly fine in private?
Right.
They're not going to apologize because it's intentional. Every one of them wakes up and says it every day intentionally because they're trying to stop Hitler. Why would they ever apologize for that? Here's some things we know. The E. Jean Carroll lawsuit against Trump only existed because New York made up a law that canceled the statute of limitations just to get Trump. We know that Bragg had to use a novel prosecution idea, in other words, made up a law in order to stop Trump, and we can all see it. We know the Russia collusion hoax was the operating system of the Biden campaign from top to bottom. We know that the laptop was hoax, as I said. Most of us have figured out that the January 6th insurrection was a hoax because Republicans don't do insurrections and don't take out their guns, right? That was all a hoax. We also know that the entire committee, the January 6th committee, was corrupt and that they, well, here's one example. Remember the claim about Trump choking the Secret Service guy in the Beast, the car that the president rides in? And apparently the Secret Service agent wanted to testify that it didn't happen, and he wasn't allowed to testify for the January 6th. No, we're not guessing whether they're a bunch of fucking crooks. We're not guessing. It's right there. Every bit of it is now public information. The January 6th committee, thoroughly corrupt. Do I think that we should get revenge on them? No. Do I think we should do reciprocity? No. I just think nobody's above the law. So I'd take that into account.
So we keep hearing.
How about the George Floyd hoax? How about putting General Flynn in fucking prison? How about the election security hoax, where they tell us the election is fine, and then
why would we put Flynn? Why do they want to put Flynn in prison?
There are gigantic holes, and we can't really audit any of this fucking thing. But believe us, trust us. Yeah, we trust you. Because after the Russia collusion fucking hoax, the laptop fucking hoax, the fucking pandemic, the January 6th fucking hoax, the George Floyd fucking hoax, and putting General Flynn in fucking jail, Peter Navarro is still in jail. And you think we're going to believe that your fucking election was good? Sorry. Now, do I have any proof that the election in 2020 was rigged? Nope. Do I need it? No. Not anymore. There was a time when I said, you're going to have to prove that. Nope. No, you don't have to prove it anymore. Every fucking part of the Democrat machine is a hoax. Do you believe that the election, the most important thing, is the one thing they're going to play straight? There isn't a fucking chance. There's no chance that it was straight. None. Not in the real world. Not in the real fucking world. In the real fucking world, there are, 30 to 50 fucking hoaxes that your news tried to tell you was real, and the same fucking people running the election, and you think that they played that straight. No chance. No chance. How about the Mar-a-Lago Boxgate bullshit? How about that inflation is under control? No problem about it. How about the border is sealed? No, it's not. It's a big problem. Wait, there's nothing I can do about it because there's nothing I can do as president. Oh, yes, there is. Wait, no, that's a fucking trick too. It looks like I closed it, but I did nothing. How about those climate change models? How about Tesla just got a low ESG score and Philip Morris got a high one? ESG is a fucking hoax. DEI is a fucking stupid
As I
idea
take
by
a drag off
stupid
a
people.
cigarette.
Our government is run by
What's that?
Alex Soros's boyfriend and or
As
girlfriend.
I take a drag off a cigarette.
Yes.
Said Philip Morris didn't.
As
Funny
if
Willis
you.
case is being delayed.
Here's
Jack
the end
Smith
of it.
case delayed. So you're going to have to run for office, you fucking assholes, on your one obvious lawfare case that even your own fucking experts say is bullshit. And that's what you get to run on. So good luck in November, assholes. You brought it on yourself.
Well, there were my
Meanwhile,
G
Attorney
rating for
General
the night.
Garland got
Thanks,
grilled by
Professor.
Matt Gaetz and others, and certainly if you watched that, you thought he's crooked
Well,
by the time you were
wait
done.
a minute, what's going on here? I got a
Fauci got roughed
here.
up, as I mentioned. But what's Trump doing?
Okay, sorry about that. But
That was
what
good?
did you think of Scott's observations and his perspective?
Well, I thought it was fucking awesome. There are questions that come up. You know, Chuck in the chat room brings up one legitimate question. He said he lied. Says who? Now I'm not sure who you're talking about there, Chuck. It came up a few minutes ago at the beginning of this. He said he lied. Says who? What? Which media? I don't think the media matters anymore, because I can listen to something as god awfully banal and unintelligent as MSNBC and say, well, they present some facts sometimes. They just give their spin on it. So
well, and therein lies the problem. I would say is the fact that you can tell the truth, but or you can tell a lie, but embellish it. Sorry, you can tell facts, but putting embellishment on it sways how it is perceived.
Right.
Well, but that's the whole concept of persuasion.
Right.
That is part and parcel of our daily interaction. It's who's the most persuasive. Yeah. Now, my point, though, I want to stay on Scott here for a second, because one of the things that I really appreciate, he reminded me a bit of a Randall Carlson rant. And for those of us that have had the pleasure of having a little
Randall Carlson did not come to mind on that, but
well, let me
totally different, because
let me make the connection for you. Now, I'm not talking about the content. I'm talking about when you talk to Randall, it's like a rapid fire machine gun of just constant information.
Right.
And what Scott did there, I think, was made a very nice, a fairly comprehensive list of shit and called it all out. Now, you can go into dispute any one of those. Just pick one and go in there and have your fun. And most of those, as he was pointing out, in my opinion, are a concocted, crafted, curated box of crap that's been tossed into the conversation.
And see, I would have to agree with that. And Sarah says it's perspective, taking and choosing what to accept. I think that makes it sound a little too random. Like Sarah, like I would say, oh, I'll just accept that because that goes along with the way I think.
Well, but that's exactly what it is, though.
I don't think that's what most people are doing.
No, everybody does. People don't realize. People don't realize.
There's people in the camp who hate Trump. All right, very much sit there and they wake up every day and they look for things that align with their stuff, with their opinions. It's called confirmation bias.
Well, but it's been designed that way. The point is,
to make it easily done that way.
And because they now have a new opinion, they get to marshal all of their existence, their emotions, and their energy, and however that gets expressed, which is usually a mess. It's usually not a pleasant thing when people become so emotionally and attach intellectually themselves to whatever the subject du jour is, whatever the victim class might be. But my point is this. I think what Scott was representing, not only very well done, and that was on his regular show just a couple of days ago. And when I'm sitting there listening to it, I'm doing my walk and I'm going, dude, you are on fire, nailing the shit out of this, saying all the things that I think need to be at least discussed, and you've laid it out in a nice little buffet of nuggets with which to go nom.
Yeah, he was in there dropping snakes and nape.
Yes.
But I also think that the other point that I wanted to make with that is tagging on to one of the rants that you guys have heard ad nauseum, which is my rise of the pissed off peeps. That I've been calling.
You're not going with the great grand reveal.
Oh, this is a part of it. The pissed off peeps and the rise thereof
Jason.
is what's going to push the dumpster fires out, and so they can get put out.
Yeah.
And Scott, he used to describe himself as left of Bernie.
Well,
okay. And there's a number of people, Bill Sachs, a lot of these very rich guys who don't have bosses, who've been traditionally supporting the left side of the ideological spectrums. They're now coming out saying, no, I'm going to go with Trump this year. And there's like half a dozen of them, big time, high visibility, big players, venture capitalist folks who are going, no, I think that, the way that Trump, because that's one of the many things I think people didn't get about Trump. And it goes back to this whole idea that the United States is not supposed to be a corporation, ergo in business. It's not supposed to create product and generate revenue and do all that stuff. It's supposed to provide services by revenue provided by the people who their services are made for. Right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting talking about the business.
Well, now it's a ginormous multi-continent, multinational, global empires of business, and it's all being done by governments. And governments are not business people. They're lawyers and activists and assholes and ass hats. I mean, there's the whole spectrum of ass.
And they're people that are just like my neighbors. That neighbor's an asshole. That neighbor's a good guy, and so on and so on and so on. And Chuck asks, who's left or right these days? I don't know. Not me. I tend to be conservative, but
I haven't seen anything of
a lot of bullshit either.
I haven't seen anything yet but then again, I haven't been directly looking for it. It would be interesting to see, or at least come election time, right? To see how many of the big companies are donating which way.
Yeah.
Into the campaign fund.
Both, I think.
Yeah, but one usually gets a little bit more than the other.
Well, if there's any information that's available that you can look at to suss out a trend analysis, is just what's happened in the week since this verdict came down.
Yeah,
as it relates to fundraising and where flow of money has gone. I mean, it went straight to Trump.
Yeah,
and that a great deal of it, I think 40% or something, was a bunch of small donations. There was that one billionaire heiress who tossed a cool 100 million at him. It's like, well, I think you're going to have to think about who you're doing when that comes along there. Hey, Donnie? But the thing is that there's a trend there's an energetic trend shift. What I call in my technology stack as a system state change. There's a change in the state of the system.
Yeah.
And I've been watching everybody, go through a whole bunch of mental gymnastics going on out there.
Yeah,
there
are
people leaping from one side of their mind to the other, and I think some are falling out some ears and they're crawling back up, trying to get back in there, back in the game. Because some of it is just, are you serious? Are you listening to what you're saying, or are you on some kind of auto spew button? So
the auto spew is on.
The auto spew has been engaged. But it has that same content. The whole thing was convicted felon is now the trending hashtag and term and used everywhere and anywhere that it can be, right?
Right.
And what's happened is And this is the thing, again, that I rant on probably too much, but I'll try to give it a short one. This whole idea of systems and processes is not the way that people who have an emotional, goal-oriented initiative and expression of their energy. They don't understand systems and processes. They know how to they know what they want with a passion, and with, they need to dial back that endorphin rush and all that emotional shit so that they can even think. But none of it is thought through. There's no definable, repeatable, defendable, sustainable thought gone into, well, how do you get to that goal? How does that happen? How are you going to get there? I like it. Free college, free education, sign me up. Free education or medical, sign me up. Free transportation, I'll have me some of that too. Yeah. Is there any a la carte in there, like, some clubs and things I can add? The whole idea is that the model is going through a transformation. This is a part of the reveal. This is for you, Jason. We're going through this transformation where shit.
Listening, Jason?
Hello, what? Jason. Wake up.
I'm listening. You didn't see me smile when you said
I said
that?
Reveal. I thought it would wake you up. But what we're seeing is a transformative disruption of the old shit to the new shit. And the old shit sucks. There's an energetic cycle that's there. We have crossing streams. You have the waning of the previous and the waxing of the new, and there's an overlap, and we're under that. We're under the stream. They're crossing the streams on us. So we're going, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we see what
really I didn't have to worry about crossing streams, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Exactly. So when so that is what's happening, in my opinion. The stuff that we're seeing, like what Scott, tying it back to Scott's little rant, what we saw there was, what we saw there, in my opinion, was a number of different ways you could categorize it. One of them is he's an internet dad. There's a bunch of people that are coming out and going, no, none of that. Nope. Stop that. There's rethink. Naval Ravikant. I mean, Bernardo Kastrup, one of my favorites. The guy's got some amazing stuff. And there are thinkers that are coming out with new ways to apply all this technology shit, all this tokenized assisted intelligence. That stuff is right here. It's now. And it's going to be what we'll use to replace the shit. And that's when part of the covers get lifted for the great reveal.
Sure. The great reveal. Are we seeing it now? Are we seeing a hint of it?
Absolutely. I think that's why I was pointing out Scott. There's another one I have, Charles Hoskins. I've got a number of people that are just coming out and saying exactly what Scott said. Now, Scott, to his credit, he had very judiciously well-placed F-bombs. And it got onto a roll where it was like, drop another one. Oh, yeah, that was good. I just really enjoyed the way that he presented that, because he expressed an emotion that I think a lot of people are feeling. I feel like they're fed up. They've had enough. They're going, is something wrong with this here? Now I see all those things and how they're connected. I can see a whole different field. The view is broadened. There's more relevance to all of the onslaught and the tsunami than the deluge of data, because it's just coming in at record volumes and velocities. So anyway, my point is that whatever it was that I just said a minute ago, that was my point.
Okay, because I can't remember what I said, so somebody just go back.
It's interesting to watch how people are reacting to all this, and I've got a buddy of mine who's fairly staunch conservative, probably a little more central leaning, but still pretty conservative. And anytime there's an opportunity, he's going on there and blasting Trump, which like, look, there's plenty of conservatives that don't like Trump, right? And I understand where people are saying, like, look, the guy's a felon. At this point, the dude's a felon, hasn't gone to appeal yet. He still stands as a felon. We should not have a felon in the presidential office. And you know what? In principle and concept, I agree with that kind of thing. You don't want a criminal.
But what you're saying, Jason, is that we should not. It's not in the law.
No, I know. It's not in the law.
So your personal perspective is
right.
Irrelevant as it relates
It's completely irrelevant to the law, the legal aspect of it.
See,
but you know what? He brings up a good point, though, right? Felons can't have security clearances.
Do you really think that this whole thing of felon being attached to Trump is not only not going to last, but it's going to be, he's going to have a lapel pin made out of it.
So here's the thing,
you're going to see it on the debates.
It may not last, okay, but the appeal process is not going to be complete by the time the election happens.
No.
All right. So
unless the Supreme Court, unless the SCOTUS steps in,
right,
and they're about to rule. They've had the immunity case in June. This is the month where they dump all their rulings before their summer recess.
Right. Yeah.
The expectation that the whole immunity ruling, however it's delineated, but it's basically going to be in not only in Trump's favor,
right?
But
that's all well and good.
All of these trials, and just basically makes them null and void. I mean, that is an extremely high.
By the way, let me say before you make your next point, Jason, I only put up Chuck's comment here: useless F-bombs for effect. That's like useless 33 33 felony charges tagged on top of one to make 34.
Right.
Useless, empty, void.
What I'm looking at is the actual challenges. Okay. Yes, there is going to be an appeal process. That appeal process, okay, we can sit here and say, they're going to dump all this shit and they're going to have it right because they got to go on their summer break and we can say that all we want. That does not mean that is exactly how that's going to work out. And it is prudent to consider the alternative when taking a look at things. Okay. It is.
What's the alternative?
The alternative is that it takes the normal length of time that this type of shit takes, where it takes months and months, potentially up to a couple of years. Okay. Now we're looking at a problem. All right. Because if that's the case, dude is still considered a felon until that stuff actually happens, which means, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. I don't know what your background is in security clearances, Professor, but I know what my background is with security clearances and dealing with the government. All right. And that's not meant to be highfalutin or whatever. This is hang on a sec here.
We're used to your grandstanding, self-aggrandizing
like
nature.
You have room to talk.
Go ahead. We got you.
So, if you have a guy who's sitting there with felony charges going into office, that means that man for at least, at least the first year of his presidency, legally cannot have access to the highest level of classified information that we need our leaders to be having to make the appropriate decisions, whether it's dealing with
something that would be done about that. I think
that's where the whole
there's not really a waiver process for you're a convicted felon.
There's a document that lays out how the laws are adjudicated along with the articles and amendments called the Constitution. It's been manipulated and mangled and all kinds of little fiefdoms from states and agencies and everything else. But nonetheless,
it's cute to sit there and look at that, but we're not looking at what the real situation is right now.
If the first act of the incoming administration was to have a joint session of Congress and have somebody read each line of the Constitution and the articles and the amendments, and have everybody listen, and had everybody affirm or cast whatever objection they need to.
You're dancing around my problem set.
Well, but hold on.
You're dancing around my problem set.
I'm not dancing. I'm trying to shut that one down so we can get to the real one.
Because you can't shut that one down without the felony charges going away.
Here's the point. The Supreme Court can nullify everything. They can shut down,
they can
dismiss, say adios, say no
I would
bueno.
agree with the professor in that, yes, they can, but
it still takes time.
It will leave that.
No, they can do it on emergency session. They can do it they can call it and have it in a week.
Yeah.
And but are they going to? Let's look at process.
I don't know. I kind of think because we're the ones who approve this form of government.
Well, I think the probability of them heading in that direction is really high.
Just because the Supreme Court ruling does not meet what you want it to meet or what your political ideology say does not make it invalid. It's still the Supreme Court of the United States.
And it goes back, that's formed by the Constitution.
But that has to go through that process.
That I was saying.
Right.
Those I understand that.
Need to be re-implemented, and any of the existing legislation, laws, regulations, rulings, anything that doesn't meet a proper interpretation and reapplication of the original documents needs to be thrown out. Period.
That's
be vacated.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't negate the fact that we have to consider that there is the potentiality for the highest office in the land who needs access to the highest levels of classification may not have it. And that could cause problems.
Well,
that's the point about
the whole security detail, the Secret Service. They were trying to vote about 2-3 months ago. I heard that I don't know who it was. I just happen to know that it was a bunch of Democrats were trying to create a law that said that if a former president gets convicted of a felony and has to go to jail or prison, that he loses his Secret Service protection. And to me, that's part of being a former president of the United States.
Well, here's the whole thing.
Yeah, but then
I don't know why we keep missing
it's like getting a felony charge, conviction, and not being allowed to own a firearm because of violent felonies.
Okay. Right. First of all,
you lose the privilege.
First of all, none of those convictions will stick. They will be overturned. They will completely be dismissed in most cases. Georgia has been stalled indefinitely.
I'm not saying that they won't.
He has been stalled indefinitely, and it goes back to why I played the clip from Scott. All of this stuff, if you look at it, there is a pattern to it. There are connective issues to it.
Yeah,
there is a way in which it morphs and does its thing. And
I get
unless
that.
You see that.
I understand that. I'm just pointing out an actual concern.
Well, yeah, it is,
and it's a valid concern, and it's something that
it is.
If you have the level of intelligence that you like to portray, you are going to keep that situation on the table as a possible thing and not just dismiss it. It has to be weighed and considered.
Well, I'm totally weighing it and considering it. And based on my analysis, I give it a short-term okay, and then a long-term adios.
I didn't do that.
And then, more importantly, it'll end up it'll end up being a marketing piece. I'm telling you what.
It probably
what's
will.
What's going to happen with the backlash? That's going to the exact opposite of the intended.
I
what
think
they
so.
intended to get.
A good indicator of that is what happened in the 2 days after the verdict came down. And the Trump
massive amounts of support
went off the edge, off the scale. I meant to say. And they $500 million in 2 or 3 days, which is unheard of.
Oh, absolutely.
That shows the people that support him are not just a bunch of bozos in some little circle over there. It is, people keep forgetting. They keep saying, well, Biden won by 81 to 86 million votes. And number one, I don't believe that for a minute. You look at him now and you go, folks, 86 million votes. Remember that. The opposite. They forget to mention that there are just that many people, minus, according to what they say Biden won, minus anywhere from 1 to 5 million votes short.
Scotty, that was...
You know what that means? Trump still got about 80 million votes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a small number of people.
That's one of the points that Scott made, which I think is extremely important, and it's not appreciated for the import that it actually is.
That's
that is the transparency, the auditability, the accountability of the system that's used to tally and count the scores. That system is not only completely antiquated and highly suspect, but because you can't audit it, you can't go in and validate the system. You can't check it against, there is no checksum. Okay. For you geeks out there. So
and I will
the problem is that because of that, nobody knows.
That's right. Yeah. Nobody really knows. What we do know, Trump in the last election received more votes than any president ever before him. But he still lost by 6 million votes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Joe Biden, who lost his presidential bid twice, was found to be a plagiarist and a liar in one of them. That's why he was taken down. Joe Biden, who a lot of people had doubts about his mental capacity prior to the 2020 election, still won by over 6 million votes when Trump got more votes than any president prior to him being there. And that's not just out of Trump's ass that figure came. That is a figure that's out there.
Well, you know what? You want to talk
validated
about
by the same system that was utilized to change the results.
Mm-hmm. So stepping away from the federal level for a sec, stepping away from the federal level for a second, going down to the state level. Are you guys familiar with Brandon Herrera?
Yes.
The AK guy.
Mm-hmm.
He ran for District 28 for senator. He lost the election, which I think was like last week or something like that. He lost the election, but he lost it by like 400 votes. You have a dude who's just a regular guy, a fucking YouTuber, not like I have a radio show YouTuber, but like, trolls on everything and has silly stuff YouTuber, lost that election by 400 votes, the largest district in Texas, running against an incumbent, which is basically that kind of thing is even unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
In giving it that much of a shakeup. And it was interesting because now I can't remember the guy's name.
Rainey can solve this for us.
Rainey can solve this? All right.
What is this?
It's all your fault. Is that solved?
She's talking to you, Prof. I don't know.
Rainey just said, take this.
Take it.
I said, what is it? And she didn't answer me.
Must be the cyanide capsule. But
she goes, wait, sign this first.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. The opposition ended, like they started off initially with the primary. They didn't take him seriously at all, right? And then he gets enough votes to force a runoff in the state of Texas in that district, which again, unheard of, against an incumbent and like a nobody that nobody really knows, YouTuber type person. And then basically forced, because he spent his money so well and did his campaign so efficiently, forced the other guy to basically piss $10 million down his leg at trying to discredit him. Like,
right.
The level of shakeup that happens to like an establishment, if you will, to basically make them panic spend against a YouTuber, kind of awesome. Those are the kinds of things that make me be like, there might be hope.
Yes.
Well, the nice thing about all this technology shit is that it's made YouTubers out of people that are just tubes of you. I mean,
yeah, there's that.
There's like, okay, well, that's enough of you. Where's the cap for that tube? But simultaneously, there's extremely well thought out, highbrow, intelligent conversations that happen on the net if you know where to find them.
There absolutely are. I don't think the unwashed masses, if you will, as my coworker likes to say about the rest of us lower level people and where we park for work in the morning. It's like all of us unwashed masses, we park way over here. It unfortunately, the majority, I feel, of the unwashed masses don't really like to sit there and listen to the highbrow, thoughtful, intellectual stuff.
Wait,
well, I think that has been more of the norm, but I think there's based on my data,
probably a vitamin
trends and direction and is heading towards let's have some intelligent conversation. Let's talk about things without them being of, some strange, ethereal, magical, anecdotal kind of realm, because there's plenty of that.
And you contribute to it every day with the great reveal.
Well, exactly. I mean, and that's why this is your moment, Jason. We are the great reveal. We are the ones. We are the ones we've been waiting for.
Can we get a bunch of bands together to sing?
I got to tell you, I always hated that, like in a book or in the movies, where you have this big thing that's being built up to the whole time. And when everything is all done and it's all, we've fought and we've done this, we've gone through death and explosions and whatever, and all this to get to it. Please tell us, what is the great reveal? And you know what it always comes down to? The great reveal is you. It is you. And it's like, I'm gonna kill you, fucker, just for saying that. And I mean, that's what the tone it takes on. So,
go ahead, and that was just absolutely a brilliant.
Do
the great reveal is you.
There is no try, only great reveal.
Only great reveal.
Oh shit! Oh, I'm glad it's Friday.
That was it. That was the reveal. It's us.
The reveal is you.
It's people.
It's
Soylent Green is people.
Get your stinking paws off me.
You damn dirty ape. You did it. You really did it.
Yes. Oh, the Great Kazoo.
From the Flintstones. Oh yeah.
Kazoo.
We could actually,
reads.
We could have actually a brief visit and stint in the land of the Flintstones. I mean, there's a possibility that there could be that kind of upset afoot.
Yeah,
if Putin
be okay with that, loses his mind and unleashes the nukes.
Live far away.
Well, the thing is that if indeed it does happen, and I think if it does, it'll be isolated and short lived. But if you happen to be around where it does its thing, you want to make sure the bottom of your feet are toughened up a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, the mileage in the
courtesy of Fred's 2 feet.
Right. Yeah. Well, people are going to have to start learning how to drive without anti-lock brakes again. That's what.
Yeah. If the engines even work anymore.
Actually, they did a bunch of. There's a guy I was listening to on the Sean Ryan show who did a lot of was involved in a lot of testing and research and stuff like that regarding things like EMPs. We talk about if the engines even work anymore, and things going back to the Stone Age. Kind of, they seem to imply something there.
Yeah.
That actually our cell phones and our cars fare way better against EMP than most people thought previously.
Remember? Yeah, you remember the 2000, the turn of the calendar?
Oh God, the Y2K.
Oh man, Y2K, baby. I made a lot of money that year.
They call that the M2K, K2,
Y2K.
Y2K. I owned the ranch. This is back before Rainy even. I owned the ranch, the 40-acre place, and I had people wanting to come out to my place to build a compound. And I'm like, cool. Does it cost me anything? As
long as I get a room and access to supplies.
Give me a room in the bunker.
Could be lead line concrete
really or out about that.
Yeah.
And I literally didn't really think anything was gonna ever happen. It's like, the Mayan calendar. Ask me if I believed that the Mayan calendar was gonna end our world. No.
Dude, just in our lifetime, just in the last, let's say the last 50 years, I'll be 67 next month. And I'm going, bring me some more of those nuggets.
So
to me, it's like another percentage. So yes. I am on my way.
So what? Everybody's trying to get rid of their stuff, so you go in and buy. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I help the sorting. I'm a sorting kind of guy. But my point is that how many times have we heard over the last 50 years, ice ages, pestilence, the gas shortage. I mean, all of these stuff.
Well, I mean, back in the 70s, by 1980, whatever, we're not going to have.
I mean, everything. If you look at if there's a couple of great documentaries on, and one's on Amazon and the other one's on Peacock, and it goes through and it does the decades. And if you look at what they captured and told of what was going on, that's Watergate. There was
a can opener this time.
Sarah just
everything
quoted one of the best lines from an old Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
The guy with the bunker waiting for all the world to just, and he got everything and realized he forgot a can opener. And all of his stuff is in cans. It's like, if you're starving, you can find a way into a can. But
that's very true. That's very true.
I've opened many cans with a ballpoint pen over the years, accumulated. So.
Oh well, thank God, ballpoint pen. If you had said a pencil, I'd have been like, it's motherfucking John Wick.
Yeah, that's right. I probably could open it.
Now we have to have an episode where Scotty opens a can with a pencil.
I'd like to.
So again, my question, which was stealthily, but not very well done, it was stealthily ignored by both of you gents, and I asked a specific question: how many disasters have we heard through the last 50 years that were about to happen and never did?
Shitload, almost every one of them.
Yeah, tons of them.
Do you think that was a warm up to numb us, or a warm up to let us know that at some point something's going to go down?
I think it's as valid as the world will be destroyed in 12 years. That's not. I'm sorry.
You little sexist, racist, whatever. I mean, how can you diss a young child?
Hands down,
clearly manipulated.
I have seen in years.
Got the wrong hormones going on.
I could afford the car she drives.
Right.
One of the best pictures that I have seen in years was somebody had I think it was the Nissan R-Type G, whatever, the Skyline, the souped up hopped up high end, race ready mechanically car that they make.
You mean like a 69 Ford Mustang 289?
No, I'm talking modern cars.
Ice pipes?
I'm talking about modern cars. But it's it's the GTR, I think is what it is. And they did a wrap on the car, and the way the taillights are, when you look at them, the outside one is they're both circles, but the outside one is larger than the inside one, just like slightly. And the way they did this wrap, it was Greta Thunberg, and the lights were like right over her eyes, so
Nice.
it had this weird googly look, and she was right in the middle of saying like "How dare you?"
How dare you?
And then the twin exhaust on each side are coming out from underneath, and it's like, that's brilliant. That is,
Nice.
I love it. I
Well,
hope somebody
see,
made a poster of that and put it up on a friggin' wall.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, Jason, because one of the other things that I'm constantly going on about, everything is broken. It doesn't matter. You pick whatever you want, any institution, the architecture, the administration, the construct, the way it works. Everything's broke.
Yeah,
and so we've reached a crescendo of brokenness. And that brokenness is in the process.
I have
the crumbleness.
It's not the years, honey. It's the mileage.
It's the mileage.
As all of that shit falls apart, a lot of it being self-inflicted and self-implosion. As all of that stuff just crumbles into the piles of the dumpster fires and the crap piles we have to dance around and avoid. It's run out of shit. It hasn't got no more juice. People that they were depending on to put the juice into it are stopping and going, I don't know if I want to put my juice over there. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
It might be.
Waiting for him to notice we're just over here playing with that.
I see.
And he was
and that, my friends, and my two esteemed colleagues, is exactly why I come on here to throw nuggets on the table, because I know that eventually the swords are going to come out. And
Roger Rabbit grabbed his machete and he's playing along. Call in, Roger.
So, yeah, I mean, the whole idea is, if you squeeze it, is it worth it?
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't recommend squeezing a blade. You're going to cut at least one part of your hand.
No, my mind went somebody.
Just make sure that
I'm sure it did.
Damn straight, it's pleasing. It's good.
Just make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze.
That's
and if
right.
the juice ain't worth the squeeze, I suggest you stop squeezing it.
But
lack of squeezing means annihilation, says Sarah.
But the guy that was running the Quickie Mart, Quick Stop, 7-Eleven, whatever, already said no squeezing the juice. For all you,
that's right,
Pauly Shore fans.
That's right.
Squeezing the juice, buddy.
So, Scotty, I remember, I think it was last week. I think it was the Monday or Wednesday show of that week. You said, let's do Boys Measuring Bottles episode. And
we never did.
The next day, was the verdict.
We never got there.
You went seriously into the, what is this?
I would have figured that would have been like the right day, the right day for doing that. Would have been like,
it could have been very interesting.
Pour a tall one, because things are going to get interesting.
Things are going to get in. Yeah, no, I don't know. It just it disappeared for some reason. I didn't get.
Well, it disappeared because it was preempted. This whole thing with the whole trial and all this stuff was much bigger than the three of us.
It was probably planned
with
too,
our tallywhackers on the screen measuring up.
Yes.
The DNC and those guys were probably like, we also need to make sure that Scotty, the professor, and Jason can't have their boys measuring bottles
Yeah, it was all plot, conspiracy, all
total conspiracy.
It is.
They signaled for it all to happen by doing chemtrails.
There it is.
It's chemtrail pattern.
William Andrus, the astronaut about to speak out, died in a plane crash today.
Oh,
about to speak out about what?
Another whistleblower.
Another whistleblower.
You notice how the whistles are getting blown? I mean, there's some
away.
There's a lot there. Yeah, there's a lot of whistles that are getting blown away, and you go, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, again, if I may, it goes back to the piece that I played from Scott and his rant about if there's anything that's consistent across all of the crap that we're currently watching in the cinema, because it's multiple movies on one screen. There's no doubt of that. Because you can look from one cube to the next on the big screen and go, there's two different stories going on here. Is it a parallel universe? Because that's another one of the memes that, the multiverse and everything else has been tossed into the thought constructs, and people are going, I can't think. Maybe I'm thinking that my reality is a bit different than what I've been told. Oh, did you read that article, Martha, about our school getting caught for teaching shit that was not true?
Did you say stool?
Stool?
Stool. How did the conversation start talking about
school?
Oh,
right.
Were you caught on a stool? Well, now you mention it, yeah, I think I learned some things on a stool.
I tell you what, the only thing that I've really learned about this whole whistleblower stuff is like, look, if the door falls off of your 737 while you're at altitude, you just don't say shit.
That's right.
No, everybody else is going to do that for you.
That's brilliant.
Don't say shit.
The more shit I know, the more I know I don't know shit.
Right. Yeah.
It just, I think it's truth teller in this world, says Ron Frisbee. Something.
Yeah, it can be challenging and has its drawbacks. But I got to tell you, from my perspective, the stuff that I think that I feel is in that truth category that I can not only articulate but defend and engage with a conversation that of completely opposite information. In fact, that's what I really like to do, because that's where all the fun is. But being able to have that kind of a conversation is one of the reasons, going back to one of the other points I made earlier before we close this one off, is that people want, they need, they crave, they secretly really enjoy, along with their Cheetos, a good, intelligent talk.
They do.
And I think that that's what people, especially as an odd rebound, probably not accounted for or calculated for, is all of the, the go to your room and we'll let you know when you can come out stuff, all of the shutdown, all that stuff, caused a whole bunch of disconnect, which people, they were either in the midst of getting good connections or they had a set of good connections, and all that shit got screwed up. So we're about 2 years out of people recovering from being shut away for at least a year or more. And that was a psychologically, socially, daily impact that nobody could really, predict what was going to be the reaction. Well, now what's happening is because the technology shit is going down and people can get on their phone in Pakistan and join our show tonight here in the good old US of A. That is connecting people in ways that has never happened before.
Yeah.
On this scale. Mm-hmm. So that people being able to have access to an ever increasing variety of information.
Is that a governmental position, Sarah?
Yes,
I think it is.
Certainly.
Is that a GS job? Can I apply for that?
Conflict mongering.
Never mind. Yes, I did, Roger. It was awesome. That was a big ass rocket.
I saw bits and pieces of it on the news.
Yeah,
was
awesome.
it a Falcon Heavy or was it a?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It was the big boy.
Yeah. Was that the one that they had put up in orbit for a specific amount of time and then brought down or something?
It was 400 feet tall.
Yeah, it's the tallest rocket. It's taller than the Saturn V.
Is it?
Which when I grew up was like, you can't do more badass on a rocket than that thing.
Right.
All the Apollo missions.
Was it like 16 million pounds of thrust?
Something ridiculous.
Or something like that.
Chuck admitted you're just biased against anybody. For being a Republican, you are biased against anybody who is on the right or is conservative.
SpaceX is leaking
helium. That's because you don't like Elon Musk because he's a conservative.
I think the real reason why people don't like Elon Musk is because they're not Elon Musk.
Because they're not Elon Musk.
They don't have his money. They can't do and say very easily the things that he does and says very easily.
He's got fuck you and fuck off money.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
That's when it comes right down to it, that is the only real reason that anybody has to not like Elon Musk. I
like
it. It's not like he's running like a Silk Road or something. He's gone out and actually he hasn't invented anything. He's innovated on existing technologies.
Yeah.
Right.
And he picked rockets, internet and satellites, the neural stuff, which is you get past the dystopian thing. Okay, there's some real good stuff going on.
I've got a good way to illustrate this.
You have the AI, you have the social media, you have the energy company and Tesla, which is not a car company; it's a power company.
People
makes
say, well, nobody like Elon Musk. Yeah, he does this because we say he does things that benefit humanity. But I don't think he's out there waking up in the morning going, what can I do to
be like an evil villain? What?
I don't think he does that. But
he wakes up and he's like, I'm going to build a million rockets.
1 million rockets. I think it's kind of like I equate this to a conversation I had with my wife years ago. And talking about I told her, she says, wow, the kitchen's nice and clean today. I said, well, if you've noticed, I said, I get up every morning at around 5 a.m. I'm up and I'm around, and I like to clean up the kitchen if it didn't get done last night. And she said, well, that's pretty cool. Thank you. I said,
hey, at the rate things are going, Scotty, if you want to come and just hang out for a weekend.
Sure. Clean the kitchen at 5 a.m.
Right. Yeah, just clean my kitchen at 5 a.m. I
said to my wife, I said, do you know why I do that? I said, it isn't because I love cleaning the kitchen. I said, it's because I want you to wake up and walk into the spotless kitchen with coffee brewing. I said, this is for you. I said, because I want to make an atmosphere where you are happiest. And I said, that makes me happy to have it clean. You know what her answer was? Her answer was, right.
What a world we would live in if more people would understand that, you know what? There are people out there who genuinely just want to do things to make their partner happy. Like, or to make other people happy. Like, not everything that's done out there is for personal gain. Either with leverage or money or whatever. Sometimes there are those of us out there that genuinely enjoy doing that shit for people. Yeah.
And I'm a very selfish person. Don't get me wrong. I like my life to be the way I like it and want it to be. I'm all about satisfying self. I am all about doing the things I love to do. Yeah, bad choice of words, but
so wait a minute, Scotty. Are you telling me that you take with an intent and an intention that you make sure that you are pleasuring yourself?
Why, yes, Professor, that would be an accurate statement.
Just wanted to clear it up, make sure we were on the same page.
It's not an inaccurate statement.
It's not an inaccurate statement. There it is. So
we're moving up from knives.
There it is. Shovels. And so yeah, I think Elon Musk is probably a cool dude. I'd like to have him pay my bills for me. That'd be nice. But
be one check for the rest of your life.
Yeah, just one check.
God.
Dude, you got billions.
I would love to have a conversation with that guy about making conversion kits available and very affordable.
Yeah.
For people to be able to okay. If we're looking at the potentiality, we're not saying it's definite, but the potential of, them actually moving forward with these notions of all vehicles are going to be electric by 2030 or 2050, blah, blah, blah. Right.
A bunch of bullshit. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, you can't mandate something that you don't know what it is and how it's and where it's going.
Right.
And
right. What I'm saying though is like, I think that would be an awesome thing for a company like Tesla to do, to make it extremely accessible to where grandma could have her 1988 Buick LeSabre converted very cheaply. Or a Valiant. Yeah, there you go. Plymouth Valiant, whatever, right? Converted over to, electric drive. Because, do these guys not have any real clue as to exactly how much that is going to cost the American people to have to meet that mandate?
They don't care.
Yeah.
Because it's not about reality.
Right. It's about the soundbite and sounding good.
Yeah, it's a soundbite. Yeah. It's
it feels good. I did something.
An S is what it is.
Yeah.
Political B is in B, S is in S.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're a smart person, you know it. If you're dumb,
lobotomies.
You think, yeah. So,
Jesus, Sarah.
John Thurston has a 12-ton RV. Ain't no way it's going electric. But I'll bet you if anybody can build one, it would be Elon Musk.
Well, I tell you what, as soon as we get the power source thing figured out,
power source issue,
then it's not a problem. That's what we have to figure out. Like, electric motors are instant torque. You can go down to a drag strip and you can watch somebody who knows what they're doing destroy big V8s out on the quarter mile and an eighth mile track.
I got to tell you, I drove a Tesla for about 5-6 months when I was doing working out in Utah and Wyoming and Utah, and I had a little red Tesla, and there was nothing better than coming up to a client's house, doing roofing, examining their roofs. The roofs
rolling a bit of Tesla.
They're like, "Oh, roofing must be good money." I said,
"It's a rental."
But I took guys for a ride. They did not believe me. I took a bunch of these cowboys for a ride in the Tesla. I had 3 of them in the back, 1 in the passenger seat. I said, "Now watch this." Hit the gas, not real gas. I hit the accelerator pedal, 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
It was unbelievable. And you know what? Not a sound.
Right.
This one.
Oh, yeah.
And it was unbelievable. And these guys, they were all in the back going, "Holy shit."
Yeah.
And,
like if we can just figure out the power supply, that's the killer of it all. Because right now it's like, you can get a 300-mile range out of it. Well, then I've got to stop and charge. Right.
A Mr.
Fusion, or even if you want to go like Fallout style, since it's all big, a fusion core that you just plug in.
Yeah. I didn't say punch it Chewy, but I should have.
Right.
I said
punch it Chewy.
And boom, there we went.
They went to light speed. Well, what have we got on this thing? A Cuisinart? No, sir. Straight to light. No, light speed's too slow. Light speed too slow. We've got to go straight to ludicrous speed.
You get the tire to hold the grip, you launch harder than any combustion motor possibly can with an electric motor. almost instant, almost unlimited torque. It was the most amazing thing. There was a pasture out there with buffalo in it to one side, and the highway and mountains over there. I just hit that thing. We were on a side road that was straight and flat. We were in Wyoming, and straight and flat. You could see almost 5 miles ahead of you, and there was nothing coming. I just hit it, and we were like, boom. And we I can't remember how fast we went. We had to be going 100 miles an hour at one point. I didn't keep that up because the last thing I wanted to do was like hit a gopher and have all of us killed at 100 miles an hour. So
hit a gopher splattered all over
you
the
hit
buffalo
a gopher
field.
at 100. That gopher, you wouldn't even feel it.
I know.
Gopher would.
Probably not.
Gopher would, but you wouldn't.
The gopher probably wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
It'd just be like, hey, just another gopher gone. Wouldn't even know it in it.
Let's see. Roger Rabbit says, I think there's a plan behind the 300-mile max range. I think it's a long-term thing to force everyone into cities, control our movement, and control the people. I think you got something going on there.
I don't, quite frankly. Battery technology just can't sustain it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it's at now.
80
Well,
gallon
it's not just that. Not just that. Let me interject this in, gentlemen, because I see yet again a nexus, pun intended.
So $250 will get you 600 miles.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a nexus of things that are occurring. Most people don't realize, first of all, in this AI thing, how much energy it takes to run that shit. Okay. It takes a shitload of energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on the higher end systems, you pay for that via tokens. So depending on the depth and the content and what system you're using, you're going to pay anywhere from 10 to 1,000 tokens, I think, to go process your request. So that consumption of energy is draining the shit out of all of the electrical grid and our current systems because it wasn't planned for.
Right.
Just like the EV power requirements were not planned for.
No, they weren't.
So what you have is a system that it's getting pummeled big time because of the goal of we've got to be green, we got to be, renewable, we've got to be EIEIO-able.
My dishwasher sings to me. Okay.
And what's happened?
You what? You what?
My dishwasher sings to me.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So this whole climate narrative around this really important gas of CO2 removers, got to go battery. You got to go where the juice is. Remember I said, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
Right now, we're putting a squeeze on an antiquated grid that has been stifled and strangled.
Well, you want to watch
by the green
real time
by the green movement, because if you remember, 20 years ago, nuclear was big no bueno.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, especially with Gen 4, which can't melt down, all of a sudden, everybody's going, well, we should fire up some nuclear.
Yeah.
All the people that were against it are now for it. And
well, that's because they learned the data and they changed their opinion.
Thank God that they did.
On this thing.
If they had not stepped in the way and halted it with all the work they did,
where would we be?
It could have been here a lot sooner.
Yeah.
So basically, they were wrong then.
And they wouldn't have had to assassinate those guys who developed the water carburetor and all that shit.
There's all kinds of stuff. There's hydrogen. Hydrogen's the big one that's coming out.
I don't trust hydrogen as far as I can throw it.
Yeah, you'll trust it when it becomes trustable.
It may function well in terms of producing power and driving wheels or whatever, right? Yeah. But I'm sorry, you're gonna strap some hydrogen tanks underneath my car. Does anybody not remember the friggin' Pinto?
Yeah,
I had one.
Or the Fiero,
water blue, baby.
Yeah. Heaven forbid you got rear-ended. One of the best paint jobs I've ever seen in my life on a Pinto. It was a black Pinto with a custom flame job, and the flame job was on the ass end of the vehicle going towards the front.
Nice. You know, I had a Pinto wagon.
Oh, you were
believe it or
styling.
not. And it was banana yellow.
Oh God!
With faux wood paneling on the sides.
Oh,
going down the outside.
You were living uptown. That was uptown cruising right there.
Like Ford County Squire or whatever the Griswold mobile.
I was driving that car, and I was on the one of the highways that have stoplights throughout the city.
Mm-hmm.
I go up to a stoplight, and it was hot out, and the air conditioning didn't work. I don't think it had air conditioning. And I'm sitting there with my elbow out the window.
More horsepower.
And another car came up beside me full of teenage chicks. And the one looks out and goes, "What a fox you are." That dates it right there, by the way. But that was, and I was like, how old would I have been? I was in my mid-20s. And they were like high school girls. So I'm like,
oh God,
you're too young. But what a fox you are. That's one of the best memories I remember about my yellow Pinto with the faux wood work on the side. Somebody called me a fox, and I thought, you're obviously not looking at my car.
Or they could have been being sarcastic.
And they were
probably feeling generous, seeing an old decrepit man by the side of the road.
That's right up there with the
5-year-old
hat on the pootie.
That's right up there with the time my senior year of high school. I had a '73 Volkswagen Super Beetle, and it had a working 8-track player. And so in Northern Virginia, like, there's a lot of money up there. These people buy each other new heads for Christmas. And so, Daddy gave his little girl the old convertible Beamer, 3 Series or whatever it was. And they rolled up next to me at a stoplight, and I looked over at them, and I'm there in my '73 Beetle, and I pick up that 8-track, and I'm like, chunk into the dashboard, and they're just like,
"Oh,
what?"
Remember the Gremlins?
The AMC Gremlin.
Oh yeah, the Gremlin.
With a V8.
Was the Gremlin the one that had was there a different AMC? It was an AMC, but had kind of rounded front too. Is that what the Gremlin was?
No, the Gremlin kind of looked like a Vega. Like the Chevy Vega, you remember that?
Yeah, but it had different different proportions that were kind of wonky.
Yeah, the GMC.
There was I see the Gremlin right here. The Gremlin almost looks to me like the old Toyota cars that were like that. But what was the AMC?
It was the one that looked like a little spaceship a little space car.
It looked like a bubble.
It had the rounded back with the big glass.
Was it the Pacer?
First wife's dad had one of those.
Yeah.
Was it the Pacer?
Spacer.
No, Pacer.
Pacer. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Oh
yeah. Here's one. Oh my God! I think I just found my Pinto.
Somebody else did the Pacer. It wasn't AMC, because that's what Garth and Wayne rolled around in Wayne's World was a Pacer.
I don't know. I think that was an AMC,
it's Pacer with a P. It's right. I got it up right here.
Yeah.
1977 AMC Pacer Gremlin Matador.
The AMC Pacer
it was
a
AMC.
two-door compact car produced in the United States by American Motors Corporation. AMC
and it only cost me a couple of tokens to get her to see that.
Years.
You know what you need to look up? The 77 AMC. Get this name, folks. The AMC Pacer Gremlin Matador Hornet.
Oh God.
That's lot
like 12 trim levels. What was the Eagle? It was like the off-road station wagon. It had all-wheel drive, and
that was the Jeep, I think. Jeep.
No,
Eagle.
Was it the Jeep Eagle? No, cool, because you had Eagle, you had Jeep, and you had Eagle, and you had Chrysler. Like they were all under one umbrella, but it was an Eagle.
Not sure.
The brand was the Eagle, I think. And yeah, but it was like it looked like a lifted station wagon, like straight from the factory. Was that AMC? No, I don't think it was AMC.
It sounds. Was it AMC?
Sounds like it was either Chrysler or maybe Dodge, but I don't know.
I don't know cars, so.
But what I do know is my first car was a '65 Ford Mustang, 289, 2+2, and I had the
my first car was a Mercedes 380 SEL.
I had the bars in the back, and out of the hole, I was beating all the Camaros and all the Barracudas and all that. Out of the hole, I was always out because there was no weight to mine, and my ass was up in the air, and I just torque and boom, I'm out.
Yeah.
But about just about 500 yards, here they come. I was like, God damn it! But I beat them out of the hole. I could.
Well, geez, I can beat people off the line with my Volkswagen Beetle.
Well, these days, yeah, I can see that.
It's all about power to weight ratio and the gearing. But after leaving the line, no.
Here you go, folks. I have pulled this because this is my old car. Right here. I mean, you talk about, this is the car I was driving when I got called a fox by a teenage girl that was about 10 years younger than me. Here it is. Boom. That is it. Man.
Dude, I know you were getting some in that.
Bow, chicka, bow, bow.
Come on.
Brown chicken, brown cow.
I mean, that's a perfect size for going out.
Oh, a Javelin. I almost bought a Javelin once, Ron.
Oh, yeah. My shop teacher had a AMC AMX Javelin. 69? 69 AMC AMX Javelin, or Javelin AMX. That was a sweet car.
Randall Flagg, I had a 1968 Buick Electra. Was my first car.
70 Impala was a boat.
You want to talk about a boat? And it was that metallic, not cool metallic. It was like Grandpa's metallic green car, the really light minty green.
Yeah.
Faux, a green of some kind of faux.
Oh, the Landau top.
It looks like it was a convertible, but it's not.
Yeah.
That's what I was driving. I was a youth pastor at the time. I was in seminary, and I had that car. I could fit 13 youth in that car.
Oh, you don't want that to get out, Scotty. That could go horribly wrong.
That could go horribly wrong. I hear you had 13 children.
I had a 64,
that was one of those where you could literally open the hood, and we all sat around in the inside the engine compartment looking at the engine to change the oil and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
it was crazy.
I had a 1964 Mercury Comet Caliente 2-door hardtop with a 289, and it had the 3-speed. And I remember this because I had the original window sticker for the car. It was the 3-speed Mercomatic multi-drive transmission.
Ooh, the Mercomatic.
Was that the one with the gear shift as the buttons on the dash?
No. It shifter was up on the column for gear, for selecting. But that thing so it looks like a stretched Ford Falcon Futura is what it looked like.
This car?
No. The Mercury Comet Caliente 2-door hardtop from '64. And that was at least a 4 or 5 body trunk on that bad boy.
Sarah, you guys are just throwing random words and numbers now.
Yeah.
I will tell you, by the way.
No, but we're men and we understand
this Pinto wagon, it looks like it's a big wagon in this picture.
It is not.
Pinto wagon was a mini car.
It's a 2-door. Well, it's a 3-door, but
it's a 2-door.
All you got is you got extra booty. But that's
much.
it. It's a two-door.
And yet, you were hanging out the back end from the knees down. So,
right.
How do I know this? Well, so it was a mini car. It was a little car, and so
do a search for the 1964 Mercury Comet Calente, or you could do the Mercury Cyclone, 1964 Mercury Cyclone. Same body.
I always wanted something cool, like the Javelin. I almost bought a Javelin once. I ended up with like a Valiant, Plymouth Valiant. Oh, you know what was cool about the Plymouth Valiants? When I was in Lynchburg, Virginia, I was an art director for a shop, but I also tended to some of the clients, and I had to drive up. Lynchburg was about 3.5 hours driving through the Blue Ridge Mountains to get to Washington, D.C. or Baltimore area.
Yeah.
And I drove up to Charlottesville and then veered off.
Yeah.
And went through some cool old towns that were all part of the old Civil War trail there. But the owner of Marriott Corporation, the hotel chain, was one of our clients, at least part of what we did for them. We were a mailing house. And I had to go up and deliver some stuff to them and pick up some new stuff. It was not a big important meeting, or the owner would have done it. But I drove up there, and I was in one of the guys' office that we were dealing with in procurement in Marriott. And he said, we got to talking, and he says, old man Marriott, he still comes in a couple times a week. The guy was in his like late 90s or something at the time. This is the early 80s. And he said, he comes in. Yeah. He goes, he looks out his office window. He goes, yep, there's his car. He says, look out there. And you see this car that is almost the color of the faux wood here on this Pinto. It was a reddish, rusty brown color. And it was something like I don't know the years, but it had to be something like a 68 to 72 Plymouth Valiant. Something in that range of time. I don't know what years they made them.
Yeah.
But he says he comes in and he still drives that car. He's been driving that car. He said at the time, he says he's been driving that car for like 20 to 30 years, whatever the dates were.
Yeah.
So 20 years probably. It wasn't a 55.
Well, look at guys like Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
Dude's been driving the same Toyota Camry or something like that, or Corolla for ages.
Worth billions, but my car I've kept for 30 years and it's still ticking. So anyway.
Shit.
Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this show up. Guess what?
All right.
I think we've been here long enough.
Am I still here?
We've been doing this for 3 hours, and I expected to be out of here at 2 hours. But it's the way it goes. I remember riding in the trunk of someone's Lincoln in high school. Two of us comfortably rode in the trunk and even watched a little mini TV. That sedan hauled 12 people to a football game that night. Nice. We got snuck into a drive-in movie theater in the trunk of something in the early 70s. So that was pretty cool. Anyway.
So I just came back in to say adios.
Well, adios, sayonara, and ciao. And ciao. Ciao, mio bella. So,
all right. Well, you gentlemen and everybody have a great weekend.
You too, Professor. Thanks for being here, brother.
Take care.
Later.
See you later. And Jason,
it's time for
you to be signed off as well.
Yes, it
Great
is.
having you here. Appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure.
Always a pleasure for me.
Well, I'm glad.
Oh, the pleasure was
it's all mine.
So, all right. You have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.
Too.
All right, everybody else. Sunday morning, we're back. And with it Sunday. I think we're still doing the carnival, though. The pea soup days wraps up on Sunday. So I might not be here. It all depends if I'm needed or my wife needs me there. And if she looks at me with that certain look and asks me nicely, I am putty in her hands. So we'll see what happens. So everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my life. And Roger Rabbit, you have a great weekend. Sarah, you have a great weekend. Claudette, Randall, Chuck, and everybody, Elderberry, everybody I can see without scrolling, have a good weekend. And Jason, you too. I still see your head over there. He's down below, blanked out, but I can still see him. So, all right, everybody. I'm going to go find out what that pill was that Rainey had me take. I had a woman do that to me once before, just before I met Rainey. Same year I met Rainey. And she used to hang out at my Scotch and Cookies. And she came over and she would cook some stuff and bake cookies with me and drink and stuff. And she gave me some pill one night and said, "Here, take this." And I popped it and I swallowed it and I went, "Oh, wait, what was that?" So now I'm going to go find out from Rainey what that was. So you all have a good night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not just your patronage, but for helping support this show. Live long and prosper.